Conservative and Reform MPs are all threatening to use parliamentary privilege to bring about a full investigation.
Now, this comes as Andrew faces further scrutiny and questions over his relationship with the spy in question. Another headache for the King.
Whilst the Prime Minister is turning his attention to a defence summit in Estonia this week, stopping by Norway today to sign a Green New Deal, our reporter Catherine Forster is with him.
Welcome to Bergen in Norway, where the Prime Minister is on a trip meeting the Norwegian PM. He will be going later to Estonia as well. But in Norway, it's all about green energy and growth.
Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber opens the doors of the London Palladium to farmers today as they meet to discuss their next steps in the fight against the government.
Close to 1,000 feared dead after a cyclone has torn through the French territory of Mayotte in the Indian Ocean as it now makes landfall in Mozambique.
As Christmas gets closer and we get caught up in the silly season of office parties and last-minute shopping, this morning we were asking, have we forgotten the true meaning of Christmas? Yeah, for how long? 40 years, 50 years ago? But anyway, we're discussing that. And that's the cyclone there.
And in the sport this morning, Manchester City lose again. Although I should say Manchester United have won a big game. I'll do that for you instead.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
OK, that's better. Spurs score 5 against Southampton, all in the first half, and 2 Premier League managers have lost their jobs.
Join me later for a look at the weather this week and to find out if there's any sunshine on the cards for your region.
Monday morning, a very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and you're tuned in to GB News Breakfast.
Well, good morning, Isabel. We're like James Bond this morning. We're talking about spies, and they're all Chinese these days. Were there any Chinese spies in the James Bond films? There weren't, sure there weren't. There were always Russian spies.
Yes, I think so.
Those days.
I can't remember. Everything was very careful on the Russian.
It's all about the Chinese spies.
Well, there was Odd Job.
Yes.
Yeah.
He wasn't a spy, though, was he?
No, so
he was just a killer.
He could kill you with his hat.
That's it, the one with the hat.
Yeah, there we go. Well, the alleged identity, of the alleged Chinese spy could be named by MPs, and they can do that because there's this thing called parliamentary privilege.
Yes, this means they won't be sued if they breach the anonymity order. At the moment, the alleged spy is known only as H6, having been described as having an unusual degree of trust with Prince Andrew, and is reported to have also met with the former Prime Minister's Lord David Cameron and Baroness Theresa May.
Now, he was banned from Britain in 2023 by the former Home Secretary Suella Braverman when it was believed he was acting on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, the Duke of York has insisted that no sensitive matters were ever discussed and says that all contact was stopped following advice from the government.
Well, let's get the views now of Deputy Political Editor of the Mail on Sunday, Anna Mikulova. Anna.
Good morning.
You see, I sort of think if someone came up to me and said, Eamonn, just a word, Prince Andrew, I can get Prince Andrew to meet you and perhaps you can sort out a deal for something, that would totally go against me wanting to do a deal. Andrew's got no reputation, no standing, no influence.
He was a trade envoy, though, wasn't he, when much of this relationship was going on?
Yeah, of course. This alleged spy was excluded in 2023, but so it is quite recent. I think the key, Eamonn, that you've seized on there is there's a difference between how Prince Andrew is perceived in the UK and probably in the Western world and in countries around the world.
Associated with the royal title.
And of all the royals for a while, and I think it probably still is there to an extent, he had the reputation of being a sort of someone who could get you into the palaces, someone who did a lot of that, those reach-out work with foreign envoys, but equally, perhaps the royal who, you're not going to get Princess Anne, are you? So, and you have to understand that in certain parts of the world, like the Middle East or Southeast Asia, and evidently China as well, the royal family is considered, it does have that cachet, it is very much considered the establishment. And when you look at what this unit, this shadowy United Workfront Department, which has been the source of this within China, is basically a propaganda arm of the Chinese government that aims to send people out into establishments in foreign countries, in liberal democracies, to effectively try and get influence and try and influence those key players.
And we're talking a lot about the headache for the king and whether or not, you know, Prince Andrew will have to sort of be out of sight for Christmas Day, for example. But actually, this is a huge headache for the government as well, because just a few weeks ago, we all remember Starmer and their translators cozying up to Xi Jinping at the G20 in Brazil, saying this is a different government, we're going to be, you know, great partners with you. Well, hang on a minute, is this a good idea?
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the government, in the election campaign, there was no word of China. There was absolutely no mention. I do remember asking them, what's your China approach going to be? And at the time, they said, oh, we're working on it effectively. I mean, it was words to that effect, which is really worrying. I mean, Rishi Sunak also didn't have a China strategy, to be clear. So it's not particularly new, but Labour does seem to be softer on it now. When you look at how Keir Starmer has been acting, how certain Labour MPs are speaking about it, there is very much an emphasis on the economic side of China and how the economic benefits of dealing with China, and almost this assumption that, well, of course we need to deal with China, without really hitting home the huge security threat that China poses and the fact that it's not necessarily our friend, quite clearly.
Yes, I get all that. But why are we getting so worried, so annoyed that Andrew is involved in this? Is he just an easy target in this, or does he present a risk?
I think Prince Andrew's judgment has obviously been at fault now repeatedly. I think there is a big question over his continued use of Royal Lodge, the fact that he says he has found money to afford it, and there have already been big calls for transparency on that front. Because
I want to ask you about this Royal Lodge business. Charles has got more money than he knows what to do with, right? Why does he care whether Andrew lives rent-free in Royal Lodge or not?
Well, I mean, I won't...
Interesting. Is there some... For instance, we're hearing that Andrew's not going to be invited to Christmas at Sandringham or whatever. And the King wants him and Fergie out of Royal Lodge. Why is that so important?
Well, I think, the King, I think, wanted him to move to Frogmore Cottage, which is just smaller, more modest, less expensive to run.
Sure, they're going to have to run it for somebody. I just don't get this. I mean,
well, there was the Epstein scandal. There was the huge car crash interview.
No, it doesn't. And what I'm saying is, they can afford to give it to him. It doesn't matter.
He's not a working royal.
He's still going to live in a royal apartment or a house or whatever.
You've got the future king, Prince William, you know, making do in a 4-bedroom cottage on the Windsor estate, and then you've got disgraced Duke of York in this 23-bedroom lodge, which he suddenly found tons of money, having settled out of court with Virginia Giffray to tens of millions of pounds. Where is all this money coming from?
Well, and that is what I think he does need to be, especially after this latest scandal. He really does need to say, where's this money? Because the implication is he has friends who can give him that money. So I think those calls for transparency will only ramp up. Why do we care that Prince Andrew? Well, it's obviously a glamorous side to this story. The bigger thing of the story is clearly we have Chinese spies who go out of their way. This isn't the kind of espionage where they steal secrets. It appears to be the kind of espionage specifically trying to influence people and specifically trying to change their mind and change their views not only on China, but about our own system, our own political democracy, our own way of working, our own way of life. And I think in that context, the Andrew link is important, just because, again, the royals do play a big role in this country.
Okay. Is the Norway link important? And if so, how important? And why should I be getting excited about that today?
So this is the Prime Minister is off for yet another couple of foreign trips. I mean, as we know, he's already being nicknamed, including in the civil services, Never Hear Keir. He does like the foreign jollies. Obviously, Keir Starmer will say that he is off to make important deals for green energy and their green strategy. So, but the question is, as you say, why is he going to Norway? I think it's yet another example of the green agenda being very, very important to this government.
Well, let's find out what it's all about. Catherine Foster with this report.
Thank you, Anna.
Welcome to Bergen in Norway, where the Prime Minister is on a trip meeting the Norwegian PM. He will be going later to Estonia as well. But in Norway, it's all about green energy and growth. We hear those words a lot, don't we, from the government? They haven't managed to generate growth much so far, but it's their #1 mission, and they believe that green energy can play a big part in that. So today with Norway, they're announcing what they're calling the Green Industrial Partnership. And a lot of this is to do with carbon capture and storage. Norway is a leader in this. Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, announced £20 billion to be invested in this over the next few years. We also heard a lot from him on Friday, didn't we, about wind farms and so on and so forth. The government is convinced that net zero, that it's a means to bring growth, to bring jobs, to bring investment. They see it as an opportunity, really, rather than a threat. So that will be happening in Norway. Then the Prime Minister will be getting back on the plane, but with the Norwegian PM, they'll be heading across to Estonia. Now, that will be for the Joint Expeditionary Force Summit. It's been going 10 years. It's led by Britain, and it's a security and defence coalition of the UK, the Nordic countries and Baltic states. The idea is that their forces can train together, can work together, and can be in a state of readiness should they need to be deployed. So obviously defence and security uppermost in European minds, given what's going on in Ukraine. A real wake-up jolt that was, wasn't it, a couple of years ago. And also, of course, with Donald Trump coming in January of next year, the new American president has been very, very clear that he feels much of Europe does not pay its way in defence. He wants to see that change. So I think that will be really focusing minds here in Europe.
Catherine Forster reporting there from Norway for us, travelling with the Prime Minister to Estonia. Let's take a look at some of the other stories now coming into the newsroom.
Close to 1,000 people are feared dead after a cyclone has torn through the French territory of Mayotte in the Indian Ocean. It's also caused extreme damage over the weekend on the nearby islands of Comoros and Madagascar. It's now made landfall in Mozambique. The cyclone was the strongest storm in nearly 90 years, winds over 200 kilometres an hour, ripping off roofs and destroying buildings.
The UK has had diplomatic contact with the rebel group that toppled Bashar al-Assad's regime, says the Foreign Secretary, as he announced £50 million of humanitarian aid for vulnerable Syrians across the Middle East. £30 million will go to Syria for food, shelter and emergency healthcare, whilst £10 million will go to the World Food Programme in Lebanon, a further £10 million to the World Food Programme and the UN's Refugee Agency in Jordan.
We want to see a Syrian-led and a Syrian-owned future, and we want one that is representative and inclusive. That is what partners in the region and allies, close allies, signed up to yesterday, and that's what we'll be encouraging.
The Israeli military has carried out air and ground attacks on Gaza over the weekend. According to, apparently it's hit local hospitals, a school area with multiple casualties. According to an Israeli military statement, they struck a terrorist cell in Gaza and a terrorist meeting point in the Beit Hanun area.
Right, let's turn our attention to farmers, shall we? They are set to discuss their next steps in their fight against the government's so-called, what they're calling, family farm tax later on this morning.
It's being hosted in the London Palladium which is owned by Andrew Lloyd Webber, who joined last month's demonstrations.
Well, let's speak now to farmer Charles Godby, who joins us this morning from Nuneaton, and I believe surrounded by a herd of cattle. Good morning. Lovely to see you again. Thanks for joining us. I'm just looking at the front of the Telegraph this morning, and they've got some statistics released by the CBI that have predicted that actually this policy will cost the Treasury £1 billion more than it will make, which begs the question, why on earth do you think the government is absolutely determined to press ahead with this?
That is the absolute perfect question. Why on earth are they pressing on with it? Because when we look at the farming figures, we have proven using the government's own data and statistics that their figures are absolutely wrong. And, you know, even the government advisors are saying this is going to have the absolute opposite impact to what they designed the whole policy to do.
So what are your chances of getting a rethink on this?
Do you know what? That's $1 million question, isn't it? I think that there's got to be some movement. At the minute, everybody who's advised the government, Labour backbenchers that we're speaking to, businesses in general, farmers, they're all saying there's got to be some sort of movement. There's got to be a U-turn. Even the economy itself showing that. We've seen how growth has stopped, stagnated, and we're going backwards in the economy. But the government are just digging their heels in. They're like petulant toddlers. They just don't want to know. They don't want to look at the facts and the figures. They've come up with something out of thin air, and they just want to press ahead with it no matter what.
Well, repeatedly, they say that this will only affect a small minority of farmers, and they claim that, actually you aren't paying any inheritance tax at the moment and that you don't deserve special treatment. You still make use of public services and therefore should contribute to them in the same way that the rest of us do.
It's easy to say things like that when your belly's full, but this is going to have a huge impact on food supplies in this country, food security and food inflation. So last week, I had a letter back myself from the Treasury. I did a Freedom of Information request, and the Treasury turned around and they have admitted in black and white that the figures they have for business property relief in farming, they have no figures whatsoever for. And that's going to be a huge chunk of the inheritance tax that they are imposing on us. When we look at the agricultural property relief, which is what all of their figures have been based on, it's now been found out that historically, farmers have been advised to use their accountancy figures rather than red book valuations, the true valuation. And so that is massively underestimated how much it's going to cost the industry. And so the government have got absolutely zero idea on what this is going to cost farmers, what this is going to bring into the Treasury, and also what impact. Dr. Aaron Mavani, Director of Syntax, whose policy was based on his advice, has turned around and admitted that they don't really know. And he said they have done no impact assessment and they don't know the affordability this is going to be for farmers.
It's just beggars belief, doesn't it, when you think that, A, it's going to cost them more than it's going to generate, but the political capital, the public certainly seems to be, from all political backgrounds, very supportive of farmers in this country because it represents, I suppose, doesn't it, our green and pleasant land, and also we all care about what we pay for food in the supermarket. We want our farmers to be happy and thriving. Do you have in your mind a figure where you think it might be fair that this could kick in? Because obviously this is all designed because of these wealthy landowners who have this loophole. You're getting paid these huge business bonuses in the city, coming out and dodging paying inheritance tax. £1 million in assets. I mean, I found out last week that a combine harvester costs £750,000 alone, let alone, I mean, the value of each cow behind you. I dread to think, I mean, in a way it's wonderful, but the value of your herd and all of the equipment plus your land and your home will very quickly beat $1 million. So in your head, is there a number at which you would find this acceptable?
Well, there's a couple of ways to look at that. I mean, firstly, what the government are trying to do is absolutely spot on. We need to stop the outside investment that's driving farmers from their own land. And the government's own advisors have said, actually, the policy as it is at the minute actually promotes outside investment and promotes people taking the land off farmers because we can't afford to actually pay the inheritance tax on our profits from food production. But actually, given the fact that we've got rid of the non-dom status, we've got rid of pension relief, that actually makes at 20% relief farmland very, very attractive to outside investment and the wealthy people that just want to roll money over and avoid paying tax. So we need to stop that. But for farmers, when you look at our returns on the income that we have invested, and it's yes, it's an awful lot of money, but it's actually money we don't realise unless we sell up. So for me, I actually think, yes, fair enough. Let's have the inheritance tax on farmers, but only implement it if we sell the land and we realise that capital. Because at the minute, by keeping hold of it, you know, we can't afford to pay it, and we're going to see food production go in this country. So, yeah, by all means, leave it at 40%, but only if we sell the land, only if we cash in on it.
James,
Interesting.
Well said. Thank you very much indeed. We'll leave James there. James is a farmer and a host of the Farming Funny podcast. He's a potato farmer.
Charles Goby.
Oh, is he?
Yes.
All right.
He's got that farm up in Nuneaton with lots of cattle. Cost a fortune, cattle, don't they? Goodness knows what that herd was worth. We're going to get a check on the forecast. It looked rather chilly up in Nuneaton. Here's Jonathan Fortree with all the details.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. A mild and blustery start to the week for many of us. Looking at the pressure pattern, you'll see plenty of isobars on the chart indicating some quite gusty westerly winds for many of us. We've also got this cold front that's essentially become stuck in the flow and is going to be stalling across northern and western parts of Scotland throughout much of today. Quite a lot of rainfall developing here, so do take care. A rain warning is in force. Northern Ireland, England and Wales, a few showers to watch out for, but generally a much drier day, and we'll hopefully see some brighter, sunnier spells developing at times as well. Quite mild conditions for many of us. Top temperatures across southern areas of England will be around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius, but that blustery wind is going to be with us, so that will just take the edge off the feel of things a touch when you are stepping outside. If you are further towards the north, particularly to the north of this rain band, we do have some slightly cooler conditions here. So for the likes of Shetland and Lerwick, we do have top temperatures here of 8 degrees Celsius. This rain band will still be in place throughout much of Monday night, and the rain warning is in force all the way through until Tuesday, potentially half a month's worth of rain quite widely across the Highlands by the time we reach the middle of Tuesday. And snow melt as well with those mild conditions will also be an issue for some flooding impacts. Generally, temperatures between 6 and 9 degrees Celsius as we start off Tuesday, and we will see this further area of rain move across Northern Ireland and Scotland during the day. A few showers for England and Wales, but generally drier here, and potentially, again, a bit of hazy sunshine, maybe a touch of brightness developing at times. Strong southerly winds, though, in place. Gales around coastal areas in the west. Those winds, again, feeding in some quite mild conditions. Temperatures of 10 to 11 degrees Celsius. But a shift in wind direction to a northerly later on this week does mean that we will eventually start to see some cooler conditions filtering their way in. So from Thursday and Friday, our temperatures are going to be dropping down. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Celtic win the first silverware of the season, the League Cup in Scotland against old firm rivals Rangers. That and the rest of the sport with Paul next.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's about Generation Z spending 6 hours a day online. Generation Z, which age group is that?
16 to 24.
OK, great.
Now, this could explain why there's 1 million young people aged between 16 and 24.
100%.
Not working.
In work.
Yeah.
And I did a TV show and we're talking about it, and the lefty person I was on with was making excuses for the fact that we've got 9 million people unemployed. And this woman, this mom, rang in and she was hilarious. And I thought she was going to have a go at me. She said, Carol Malone. I thought, here we go, another one. And she goes, you are absolutely right. She said, I've just thrown my son out of the house, who's 24. She said, my husband and I, she said, we worked all our lives, 2 jobs, to get him to college, to get him to a private school.
Yeah.
She said he hasn't worked a day.
No.
And his attitude was, why should I? And you think, and she said he spends all day online.
On his phone.
That's all he's
because
doing.
we would have gone to get a job because we were bored. And the trouble is, Jonathan, the younger generation are never, ever bored because the algorithms keep them stimulated.
Well, the dopamine hits keep coming. I think it's actually a problem for all of us.
Yeah.
You know, now for anyone, if you just have a moment to yourself, a lot of people of all ages, what do we reach for? We reach for our phones, particularly for those. Obviously, if we're with a friend, we'll talk to them.
Your age group, you're not
well,
talking
fine,
about...
but I know that I've spoken to a lot of people who are in their 50s and 60s who also will just, you know, if they have a free month on the tube or whatever, they'll just look at their phone and read. And it's actually terrifying because on the iPhone every Monday it tells you how much time you spent on your phone the previous week. And it's,
how much for you?
On average per day?
Fair few hours. I mean, a lot of that will be work.
What's a ballpark? Oh, more than 5?
Occasionally 5, yeah.
Well, better things to do. Spending 6 hours a day.
Do you never read a book?
Well, that'll be at night time.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Just sitting talking here about food and breakfast, and we think an absolutely ridiculous policy by fast food outlet McDonald's, who don't serve finger-licking stuff and burgers and things. They serve their version of a breakfast, which is the most horrible, horrible thing, like rubber eggs that are like rubber.
Potato that's like plastic.
But you can't get...
I like them. I like the breakfast, I do.
You know, the reason...
But no, what I resent, and I think my colleague resents this too, is that we can't go and say, I'll have a Big Mac, please, and fries, until it's 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it's too late. Well, the reason we started talking about this was because apparently Gen Zers, 3 in 10 of them now would rather have fried chicken for their Christmas dinner than turkey.
Right.
And I was just got me thinking about fried chicken, and then I thought I can never get fried chicken because the only time I ever want it is in the morning after coming out of here when I'm hungry.
Can you get fried turkey?
Oh, what?
You can. Bernard Matthews used to be... They were breaded, weren't they? Beautiful. Do you remember?
Yes, yeah.
Do you remember those Bernard Matthews turkey steaks?
No.
There you go. There's a little something for Christmas.
Yeah.
Bridge the gap.
And a little something for Christmas. Went to Celtic yesterday. First silverware of the season, Scottish League Cup. And the big thing was that it was against Rangers.
Celtic 3, Rangers 3 was how it went. Then went to extra time. Then went to penalties. It was... this is a word I don't use very often. It was a humdinger, is what it was. It was a humdinger.
Word, yeah.
It was a humdinger. 5-4 on penalties. Kasper Schmeichel saved the final penalty because there were 10 penalties in all. Jack Butland took one for Rangers as well and scored against Schmeichel. So Scottish League Cup, 1 defeat. I mean, Brendan Rodgers, your friend Brendan, has got a great record against Rangers. 1 defeat in 20 Old Firm derbies.
Really?
So, yeah.
Magnificent.
So it was a great game. Again, see, the thing is, this is what I'm going to say about the Manchester derby. It wasn't the highest quality of football, but often... that makes it more exciting. I was talking about a game last week that was very similar. You won't look at it and say, oh, this is amazing quality. And it's often when there are mistakes and it gets a bit exciting. That's when it's exciting, and that's when you get lots of goals. So 3-3, it's a great game.
I'd packed up shop. I mean, it was a pretty depressing day. It was 5-0 for your lot at Southampton.
Yeah.
And we were 1-0 down with, 5 minutes left or so.
So you're thinking... I mean, going into the Manchester derby, so away at Manchester City... We know how bad City have been. Manchester United in transition, shall we say? So did you not fancy it at all?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, if City are bad, we're worse.
Yeah. And I think you weren't great yesterday.
No.
But the last 2 minutes, you're absolutely fantastic.
That young lad, Ahmad, just
Ahmad Diallo, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he made the difference. So 88th minute, 1-0 down, United, you get a penalty. So, and that Fernandes puts that away. Then, within a couple of minutes, Martinez puts the ball through to Amad Diallo, lobs the keeper, takes it around. I mean, a fantastic goal. Yeah. All hell breaks loose. It's unbelievable. Manchester City are just collapsing, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy what's going on.
I believe it. I mean, I do believe for any team to win anything, a bit of luck has to be along the way.
You do need a bit of luck, but the thing is, for me, it seems that Manchester City are not used to what's going on at the moment. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to, it's like, then the confidence goes, it's like, well, we're going to go, what are we going to do? We're not used to feeling
What was Guardiola saying yesterday? He gave that post-match speech and he's basically saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not right for this, or whatever. Is he getting his way out of that?
Inspector Clouseau, you're talking about. Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's hear the proper accent. Let's hear what Pep had to say.
But it's not about this situation. This situation happened many times. I don't have defense, so I'm the boss, I'm the manager. I have to find a solution, and I don't find a solution. So this is a big club, and big club, when you lose 8-10, something wrong has happened. But I'm the boss, I'm the manager, and I'm not good enough. It's as simple as that.
It's this, isn't it? It's a bit of this.
He looks like a man under stress. I actually feel a bit sorry for him.
Do you? I don't feel sorry for him in the slightest.
Do you not?
I don't.
It was an act?
Yeah, well, no, I don't.
No.
He's going through it, of course, but he's been so hugely successful. Everything that he's won.
He looks ill.
And to have a look... Do you think he looks bad?
I don't know. I just think...
Are you worried for Pep?
Yeah.
I tell you what, we just signed...
It was Pep with all the funny scratches.
That was it, when he did the scratches the other day.
Not in a good way.
1 in 11 now Manchester City have won. I mean, this is just unbelievable stuff. So then...
I say bring it on.
No,
I tell you what...
had your fun.
No mercy.
Unlucky,
From
Man
10
City.
years ago, those words will never leave me. Aguero!
There you go, and you were sitting there just...
honestly, I just couldn't... I had to go to a wedding that evening, and I just... It was horrendous.
Aguero ringing in your ear holes.
Just was horrendous.
By the way, what did you think of the Kyle Walker thing? Did you see the Kyle Walker and Rasmus Højlund
thing? Yeah. He should be at the Oscars for Best Actor.
Well, let me explain. So for those that didn't see it, Kyle Walker went head-to-head with Rasmus Højlund. And he's just a kid, isn't he, Højlund? So anyway, and Kyle Walker's been around for ages. They're just, they're having a bit of an argument head-to-head. Kyle Walker goes down like a sack of potatoes, rolling around on the floor. It's ridiculous. This is the tweet that Rasmus Højlund put out. Manchester is red. OK, the poetry, this is not Wordsworth. Manchester is red, violets are blue. What a brilliant performance. But the Oscar goes to...
Yeah.
And there you go.
Yeah.
It's Kyle Walker. He's doing himself
it wasn't even
huge disservice.
Oscar-worthy. It was so bad.
Yeah, it was a golden raspberry.
One of those rotten tomatoes, whatever.
That's what it was. Golden raspberry.
Chelsea making their mark, maybe top of the table or not. I don't think they'll be strong enough to do
you not?
that.
See,
no.
I think I'm in the minority. I think they're going to stick around. I think they may be surprised. I think they're going to surprise a few people. So they beat Brentford 2-1. Crystal Palace beat Brighton 3-1 away. Spurs then 5-0 against Southampton. 5-0 at half-time. I'm sorry, but I was disappointed because I thought it was going to be 10. And then it stayed 5-0. But Russell Martin, the Southampton manager, not only the old song, you're going to get sacked in the morning, you're getting sacked in the morning, he got sacked straight after the game.
Straight after the game.
So that's the end of him at Southampton.
I think this all builds very, very nicely to Thursday night League Cup.
Yes.
And it's Manchester United, well, it's Spurs. It's your ground. Spurs against Manchester United.
We're going, by the way.
You're going?
We're going together.
Day out?
Yeah.
And we're sitting neck and neck, really, in the table, more or less.
Yeah, exactly. Both are capable of losing 4-0. Both are capable of winning 4-0.
Yeah.
So it may not be a humdinger, but it will certainly be a ding.
Well, it was a beautiful friendship before.
Yes, exactly.
May it always remain.
Honestly, we're always very respectful, but when it actually comes to the cut and thrust of it, we've never watched a football match together.
Oh, dear.
Things could get difficult.
You'll be fine, boys.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think
Would you come along and just sort of sit in the middle?
Peacekeeper, you wouldn't want me there. I wouldn't know what was going on. I would be a pain.
Spurs are in the red or the white?
What is that? Offside? I don't know. Thanks very much, Koiti. We'll see you again just after 7:15. For now, we're going to take a look at the Great British Giveaway. This is a whopper, isn't it? And an incredible £50,000. It's tax-free, up for grabs. Here's how.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Good luck still to come. Let's see what's making the news. Dawn Neeson back fresh from her adventures to Iceland. Joined, as always, on a Monday at the moment with Chris Akabusi, and they'll be taking us through what's making the news.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, the A167 is closed each way over the Gateshead flyover for safety checks. In Fermanagh, the A509 is closed each way between Timor and Derry Lynn after an accident last night. The Port of Holyhead remains closed to repairs to storm damage. In Powys, the A490 is closed each way off the A458 at Welshpool after an accident. In Warwickshire, the A46 is closed northbound from the A452 at Kenilworth to the A45 at Festival Island in Coventry for emergency repairs. And the M25 in Essex is closed anti-clockwise at junction 28 for the A12, where overnight roadworks have overrun. There are queues towards there and delays too as you divert. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dawn Neeson and Chris Akabusi, they've got the papers. Dawn, the headline, front page of the Mail, is why China spy must be named. Why must the spy be named?
Because it's almost like naming a sex attacker, basically. It encourages other victims to come forward. So the theory, the thinking behind this is if we name this person, currently called H6, catchy, if we name him, other people, influential people who may have been in contact with him but not sure, might think, oh, gosh, that was the chap I did A, B and C with, and then come forward and tell their stories as well.
There's just so many questions for me linked to why does he have an anonymity order in the first place? Presumably there was a good reason that the court granted that, and why would that suddenly not be relevant now? And secondly, if he was such a threat, why wasn't he charged under the Espionage Act in this country? Much like those two politicians who infiltrated the Foreign Affairs Select Committee last year under Tom Tugendhat.
Maybe he was a double agent.
But I just feel like there's so much more we don't know about
There is,
all of
yeah,
this.
I completely agree, and maybe that's why MPs are threatening to name him under parliamentary privilege, Nigel Farage being one of them. But I thought, well, why would you, if you were a spy, why would you bother making friends with Prince Andrew? How useful is he going to be? But
this is what I said 20 minutes ago.
He's a useful idiot, according to Beijing, with the emphasis.
The expert we had in was basically saying we forget the currency that royal titles hold abroad.
This is it, yeah, absolutely. And it's just the influence that being friends with Prince Andrew can give you in the circles you really do need to be mixing in. And it's like, when I first read this story, because like you, Eamonn, I'm sort of a bit out of the news loop at the moment because we've been away. Not together, obviously, celebrating our birthday. But it's like, well, why do I care? But the really scary thing is the way China is operating, we're not necessarily aware of on a daily basis, is they're trying to influence our future. They're trying to take control of everything we do, certainly with green energy and technology. And, we all remember the fuss over the 5G network, don't we?
Well, yeah, and there's lots of listening devices. I mean, if you read the papers over the weekend, air fryers are all being connected to China.
Your fridge can spy on you.
Listening.
So the reason I think that we care is because the connections that the Prince has, and it's the clandestine nature of building influence in other worlds. So when I was a sportsman, for example, a way that any organisation who wanted to get involved with the sport would befriend a group, a unit, a training unit, and then become familiarised by everybody around, and then before you know it, they become the team physio, they become the massage person that everyone goes to, they become the latest idea who puts orthotics in your shoes. So actually, although it may seem churlish to start with the Prince, it's a great way to... Everyone knows who you are, you become acceptable, doors are opened, and before you know it, they are introducing the people that really matter in the spy game to the highest echelons in our society.
Absolutely.
Do you care where Prince Andrew lives? This is another big thing that... where he is, this place, Royal Lodge.
Give him monkeys.
Well, Charles has so much money. I mean, so much money that sometimes I just don't think I ever understood how much money the royals had and how much they were able to earn independently without doing anything. They get money off the seabed, for instance, all around.
Yeah, they own the seabed. That's just weird.
It is weird,
Yeah, that is weird.
But it's money for nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely money for
Well,
nothing.
I think what Prince Andrew has done has made it possible for MPs now in Parliament to start asking searching questions of our royals in a way that the royals have managed to avoid for hundreds of years. And this is unhelpful for the King because he doesn't stand to benefit much.
Well, this is, I mean, the other story in the Mail, Duke gives King a festive headache. I mean, because I think the brothers at the end of the day, and, going to Sandringham for Christmas and doing that walk to church, should Andrew be there? He was there last year, wasn't he, or not? I mean, I don't think he personally should be there, full stop. But it's like, you're going to have to keep a very low profile over Christmas because all this is going to hang around still.
There was a very good documentary on Channel 5. It was week 2 of this documentary on Edward and Mrs. Simpson. And so George, the brother who became king, how much they didn't get on with each other, and this was all about money and title and power and position and goodness knows what, and very much echoes Harry and Will's, what's going on there at the moment. But again, a lot of that was about money.
Yeah, I'm wondering, the first few years of life, I saw somewhere where the Queen was enamoured with Andrew when he was born.
Yes.
And Charles, the heir to the throne, knew that the Queen loved him more than the King.
He was her favourite.
He was a favourite. And, the Bible says you cannot love two people. If you love one, you hate the other. Now, hate's a strong word, but there's lesser favours bestowed on the other. So who knows the dynamic over the years that happened between these two brothers?
Sibling rivalry.
Oh, thank you very much.
Interesting. Dubai teenager faces jail, and that could be as much as 20 years. And this is 2 young teenagers who had a sexual relationship. The parents of the girl then report this fella in Dubai. I don't know how.
Mum was at home in the UK, and how she got hold of the text messages, WhatsApp, I don't really know what it is. But look, why this worries me? I mean, I've got a young lad, he's 17. I remember what I was like when I was 17, 18, let's not go there. And
oh, no, let's.
And this young boy, or young man, should I say, pardon me. He goes to Dubai. Now, Dubai's got us working so far. Is Dubai a Muslim country with all those strict rules, or is it the new Vegas? Lights, pipes, dancing, etc., etc. He goes there, meets an English woman, as far as he's concerned. They're nice and partying, texting, and before you know it, he's doing what young people do.
Have I had a
and then mum texts.
But sorry, I don't understand. The British lad...
They're both British.
Yeah, but...
They're on holiday.
Is he in jail in Dubai?
He's not in jail. So he's not in jail, but he's been withheld. He's been restricted.
So in other words, if he doesn't go back to Dubai, he'll be all right.
No, he's in Dubai.
Why is he
he's
in
been
Dubai?
held there.
Why?
Because he's standing trial, waiting for the trial, waiting to find out whether it's going to be a year or 20 years, waiting what's going to happen.
So her mother got in touch
with the authorities in Dubai
because she got access to texts.
Exactly.
While they were both still in Dubai.
The girl had come home, but the boy was still in Dubai. So they hold him there. He's broken the law. OK, we'll hold you there. They're doing the investigation. So now they've got to find out whether it's going to be a year or 20 years in Nick, whether the guy can come home and do it here or do it over there. And it's a whole nightmare. They're hoping that it's Prince El Maktoum, that they actually show some clemency and some leniency. But for me, it's just a nightmare that you go to a place that could be Vegas. And this is the thing is, my boy, international boy, all of his mates at school, they're from all over the globe. You get a little bit friendly with them, and you think you can do in the UK. I'm not saying my boy's up to anything, but you think you can do in the UK or Dubai what you can do in Vegas. No. If you go to a Muslim country, there are rules and regulations, and the kids don't know.
Yeah.
Well, the rules and regulations we have here is we've got to go to a break, and we'll be back with more stories right after this.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Today I am joined by documentary maker Daniel Wing, who is still trying to find out who murdered his mother 30 years on. He's also created a documentary called Who Murdered You, Mum? Daniel, can you just tell us the story of what happened to your mother, what you know?
So when I was 1 year old in 1992, my mum Tina was murdered. My dad went on trial for it and was acquitted. And the case went unsolved and has been unsolved for 32 years. My nan, who raised me, amazing woman, passed away sadly 2 years ago, and that kind of sent me on a quest for answers.
So your documentary then, what are you hoping to achieve with it?
I am fighting for justice for my mum. I have had a meeting with the police and they are looking to see what they have and are looking to reopen investigation if they can find new and compelling evidence. What's interesting now is speaking to other families who are actually going through the trauma and experience of murder.
Yeah.
My mum didn't get the opportunity to be a mum. What would my life have been? I'm now 33 years old with no parents. And it's that kind of thing. It's a very, I guess, lonely journey in what I'm experiencing. That's why I wanted to make this film, because I hadn't had the opportunity to be able to grieve my mother and know who she was. And that was really what this journey was about. It was about finding out who she was and being able to grieve. Everyone had the opportunity, although terrible circumstances, to be able to go to the funeral and have that moment, and I never had that opportunity.
The People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The next 4 minutes will be about Keir Starmer, who's off on a tour again around the world, and he's been playing football.
Never hear Keir.
Which came first?
Here we go, here we go, here we go.
Dreadful.
That's the headlines.
Yeah.
You got Keir Starmer, Sir Keir Starmer, and his defence strategy. First thing first, cover the crown jewels. So he's covered his crown jewels, playing for his North London side. I'm not sure if that's Dirty Spurs,
Arsenal,
Sosquatty, or Lias.
That must be a security nightmare.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess it is. But I guess they're used to it now. But I'm looking at him. He's got to be a clogger out house, isn't he?
Yeah.
I know I could run rings around him. Boom, boom. Wasted the new lot. But I'm looking at him thinking, what position would you want him? Right back in the changing rooms?
Yeah. The blandest, most ineffectual position on a football pitch?
Well, it used to be the fullbacks, didn't it? But now there's sort of dynamic wing-backs up and down, up and down. But right back, left back used to be the sort of positions where, you know, you're not the best, you just clog.
Yeah.
But, and he looks like a clogger.
He does.
I think I could take him on, though.
Yeah, no, I think I could, even in these shoes.
He's a heck of an age, isn't he? 63 or so to be playing that.
Oh, OK. Oh, yeah, because we were not 60s, but playing football at 60.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to give him his due. If he can really play football.
OK, so what's he in Norway for, and do we care?
No. Next question. He's in Norway to do something about growth and green energy. So he's on a world tour, basically, isn't he? I mean, Norway's just the latest leg of this world tour to save the planet.
And meanwhile, his approval ratings are, well, among the worst in modern history, according to the Mail.
Yeah, this is an Ipso poll that they've done. Well, I don't know if they've done it, but it's an Ipso poll. And he is the lowest approval rating in modern history at this stage of his premiership after 5 months. A whopping 6 in 10 people said they were dissatisfied, that's putting it politely, with the Prime Minister's record, including more than a third, nearly 40% actually, of Labour voters.
Yeah.
It's just,
because he's affected a lot of Labour voters with the heating bills and
farming, I suppose.
Farming is not a popular policy either. And actually, everything they haven't seemed to have done anything that seems to be very popular.
Yeah, I think trust is key. I think he's just lost trust. You just know that whenever he says something come out of his mouth, you know he's telling porkies, and you know you can't trust a word that he's saying. He seems to be a bit of an automaton. So it's even as if someone has programmed him to say what he's got to say. He deflects any questions and then says it again. You know, it's just, there's no humanity in the chap at all.
They even managed to, I mean, a Labour Party upsetting the unions. Even after you bung them a huge inflation-busting pay rise, the unions still aren't happy, mostly over the winter fuel payment for pensioners.
It does beg the question, you know, whether Wes Streeting is the next leader of Labour in waiting. He seems to be the only one capable of generating any headlines that are remotely positive for Labour.
Well, he talks sense. And you know, the other thing
he's dynamic. He actually responds to interview. He's a delight, isn't he? Because he answers your question.
Exactly.
And he seems to think on the spot, whereas all the others pretty much take leadership from the top. It's just off the crib sheet. You know, don't go off the script, and it's not engaging.
No, it's not. I mean, who do you think, though? This is Starmer's got a popularity rating of -34, and this is the recent Prime Ministers, going back to Margaret Thatcher. Who do you think was the most popular one?
Thatcher.
No, actually, it's not. It's Tony Blair, who had a popularity rating of 57.
Then.
Who came second, though? But you can't guess this one. No?
No.
John Major.
I was going to say
that. Yeah, absolutely. Thatcher had an approval rating of -3. According to us.
Not too bad compared to -34 for old Starmer.
For Starmer, yes, indeed.
Have we got time to talk about Santa Paws? No, we've got 5 seconds. We're going to save that for next hour, which sounds like my kind of story. The Hyde Park sausage dog walk. More on that a little bit later on his Jonathan Portree.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. A mild and blustery start to the week for many of us. Looking at the pressure pattern, you'll see plenty of isobars on the chart indicating some quite gusty westerly winds for many of us. We've also got this cold front that's essentially become stuck in the flow and is going to be stalling across northern and western parts of Scotland throughout much of today. Quite a lot of rainfall developing here, so do take care. A rain warning is in force. Northern Ireland, England and Wales, a few showers to watch out for, but generally a much drier day, and we'll hopefully see some brighter, sunnier spells developing at times as well. Quite mild conditions for many of us. Top temperatures across southern areas of England will be around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius, but that blustery wind is going to be with us, so that will just take the edge off the feel of things a touch when you are stepping outside. If you are further towards the north, particularly to the north of this rain band, we do have some slightly cooler conditions here. So for the likes of Shetland and Lerwick, we do have top temperatures here of 8 degrees Celsius. This rain band will still be in place throughout much of Monday night, and the rain warning is in force all the way through until Tuesday, potentially half a month's worth of rain quite widely across the Highlands by the time we reach the middle of Tuesday. And snowmelt as well, with those mild conditions, will also be an issue for some flooding impacts. Generally, temperatures between 6 and 9 degrees Celsius as we start off Tuesday, and we will see this further area of rain move across Northern Ireland and Scotland during the day. A few showers for England and Wales, but generally drier here, and potentially, again, a bit of hazy sunshine, maybe a touch of brightness developing at times. Strong southerly winds, though, in place. Gales around coastal areas in the west. Those winds, again, feeding in some quite mild conditions. Temperatures of 10 to 11 degrees Celsius. But a shift in wind direction to a northerly later on this week does mean that we will eventually start to see some cooler conditions filtering their way in. So from Thursday and Friday, our temperatures are going to be dropping down. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, the A167 is closed in both directions over the Gateshead flyover for safety checks. In Fermanagh, the A509 is closed in both directions between Timor and Derry Lynn after an accident yesterday evening. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for emergency repairs to storm damage. In Paris, the A490 is closed in both directions off the A458 at Welshpool after an accident. In Warwickshire, the A46 is closed northbound from the A452 at Kenilworth to the A45 at Festival Island in Coventry for emergency repairs. And on the M25 in Essex, there are anti-clockwise queues towards junction 28 for the A12, where overnight roadworks overran earlier. The queues are back beyond junction 29 for the A127. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good luck. I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to the programme. Calls are growing to name the Chinese spy at the centre of the Prince Andrew scandal.
Yeah, Labour, Conservative and Reform MPs are all threatening to use parliamentary privilege to bring about a full investigation.
It comes as Prince Andrew's facing further scrutiny and questions over his relationship with the spy in question. Another headache for the King.
While the Prime Minister turns his attention to a defence summit in Estonia, stopping by Norway today to sign a Green Deal. Our reporter Catherine Forster is with him.
Welcome to Bergen in Norway, where the Prime Minister is on a trip meeting the Norwegian PM. He will be going later to Estonia as well. But in Norway, it's all about green energy and growth.
Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber is opening the doors to the London Palladium to farmers today as they meet to discuss their next steps in their fight against the government.
Close to 1,000 feared dead after a cyclone tears through the French territory of Mayotte in the Indian Ocean. It's now making landfall in Mozambique.
As Christmas is edging closer and we get caught up in silly season, office parties, last-minute shopping, you know the drill, we're asking this morning, have we actually forgotten the true meaning of Christmas?
And in the sports, Celtic win the first silverware of the year. Silly season for Manchester City. They continue and lose again, this time to Manchester United. And there'll be a Sky Sports defection to host Match of the Day.
Join me later for a look at the weather this week and to find out if there's any sunshine on the cards for your region.
Hello there, very good morning to you on this Monday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster and you're tuned in to GB News Breakfast.
Nice to be back again. Thank you for all your...
It's nice to have you back.
I'm sure it is.
It is.
I'm sure it is. I've absolutely no doubt. Although last week I had very good company. I had a beautiful co-host last week.
Did you?
For stuff that I was doing, yes. See if you recognise my friend here in the picture.
I've been replaced.
That's you.
There it was.
It's the Mona Lisa.
Yes.
Yeah,
did you have it to yourself?
Yes.
Really?
You didn't,
did you? Arranged or?
What do you mean, was it arranged?
Like Kanye West.
That's his house, for crying out loud.
If George Clooney came in or whatever, I come in and they say, George, have your picture taken.
Well, it's pretty impossible to get the Mona Lisa to yourself unless you
obviously
are
it's
Monsieur
not.
Holmes.
Yes.
When I went, there was like 60 people in front of me and I got like a picture of like a bunch of heads.
You should hang about with me more
because it's
often.
actually quite tiny.
It is, though. Apparently the Mona Lisa has put on her Instagram that she had a photograph taken with Eamonn Holmes.
Yeah.
How about that?
And did you like the Mona Lisa? Did she think she was worth all the hype?
I think she's very small and it's hard to see the detail. But there is something just
vivid.
Unreal about it, vivid. And when you think you're looking at Leonardo da Vinci, Leonardo DiCaprio, who was it?
Yes, it was. It was one of those.
It's one of those.
I think the phrase Mona Lisa, give us a smile, for crying out loud, is what you're thinking. You know, what are you?
Did you do that thing where as you walked away, you were sort of seeing if her eye was following you? Because that's what she's famous. She famously follows you around the room.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
Very clever. He's such a good artist.
Oh, really?
He was able to make her dynamic.
Oh.
Yeah.
It wasn't like one of those golden 3D
great calm down. Sit beside you two today.
I thought you were going to say the Mona Lisa was a disappointment.
No.
I am in comparison.
No,
I can take that. I'm okay to be second fiddle to Mona.
So there we are. And
welcome back.
Thank you very much indeed. And I've had no offers from Chinese spies.
Have you not?
To have any access to the Mona Lisa or anything else.
Right, OK.
But the identity of this alleged Chinese spy could be named today.
Indeed.
So we're going to Robert Moore now. Robert's the Shadow Minister for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Busy day for you, Robert. Let's start off not with the Mona Lisa. Don't know if you've ever seen the Mona Lisa or not, but very nice was too. What about this Chinese spy? Do you think you've seen this Chinese spy?
Well, obviously there's a lot of talk about it today, and we'll just have to see on if any identity is revealed. There's been talk about that, but our position is very clear that we would expect the courts to take a position on this, and we think that there should be some transparency related to the identity, and it's up to the courts to do that, and that's what we would effectively encourage the courts to do.
Obviously, there are serious questions, though. This involves a senior member of the royal family. If there was an Anonymity Act in place, presumably the security services would have had a say in that. Is it right that members of Parliament who may not be familiar with perhaps potentially issues of national security have the right to name him and shame him without breaching that order in Parliament, which could well happen from lots of different political stripes today, all threatening to name him?
Yeah, and we'll have to see how things pan out in Parliament later on today. But from our point of view, from the Conservatives, we've been clear that because of the issues that you've just mentioned, it would be right that a court should be making that decision, and the court should make decisions around any anonymity being removed. And that's why we would encourage the courts to consider that for reasons of transparency. But it is for the courts to do that and make that decision.
What sort of decision should Keir Starmer be making on behalf of farmers? He knows the turmoil there is out there, the opposition. This is not a popular policy as regards inheritance tax, but he says he's standing firm.
Well, look, the budget is having catastrophic consequences on our farming community. All of the farming lobby, the National Farmers Union, the CLA, the Tenant Farmers Association, the Central Association of Agricultural Valuers are all united in saying to Keir Starmer that his budget and Rachel Reeves' budget is going to have catastrophic implications. We've seen that in the protest that we had last week and the one that we had about 16, 17 days ago in Westminster. The anger out there amongst our farming community is quite rightly very, very damning on the impacts that the budget will have. And so therefore, as Conservatives, we had a vote in Parliament urging all Labour MPs to back us in axing the family farm tax. Unfortunately, they didn't do that. And we are still calling on the government today to look at this and change course, because this will have a negative impact on food security, a negative impact on business growth amongst the rural economy and our farming community, and also likely have a negative impact on food prices.
Yeah, your leader, Kemi Badenoch, quoted on the front of the Daily Telegraph today saying no one is safe from Labour, and she's been responding to the comments from the CBI, who've predicted that actually this inheritance tax raid will cost $1 billion more than it will raise for the Treasury, which is quite extraordinary if those figures are correct. But can I just ask you, does the Conservative Party recognise that what the Labour Party were trying to do was to close a loophole that was being exploited by the super rich? Do you think that needed closing, that loophole, or were you happy with that to remain?
Well, let's just look at the figures that have been released and put out in the Telegraph today. Some great research that's been done by the CBI Economics and a letter that has been jointly signed by many lobby organisations today, including the National Farmers Union, because this isn't just about farmers. This is about all businesses being impacted by this £1 million cap on business property relief and also agricultural property relief. It will generate the Treasury less than what they were expected. So they're anticipating it raising about £500 million. The figures today are saying it's going to be well over £1 billion short to the Treasury. But worse than that, it's anticipated up to 2030, growth in terms of gross added value will be less than about £9 billion, leading to job losses, much more business uncertainty, and having dire consequences to many of those farming businesses, but also all businesses out there that are generated and encompassed within family setups. So. Catastrophic implications, and I would urge the government to change course.
Yeah, but just to push you on that point, because, an hour ago we spoke to a farmer who was obviously opposed to what they're dubbing the family farm tax, and he said, look, this is going to hurt us and this is the wrong approach from Labour. But he was able to say, actually, many of these big city bankers or big corporations are exploiting the countryside and pricing farmers out. And on this particular point, do you think that something needs to be done about that? He made the point that as Labour's closing the non-dom loophole, a bunch of those particular people are going to go and try and buy these huge parts of rural United Kingdom because 20% inheritance tax looks like a good deal to them. Yeah,
so let's be honest about this. what the changes that the government have brought out are not even meeting the objectives that they wanted to try and achieve, and therefore they should have looked at other mechanisms within the tax structure if they were wanting to get that desired outcome where it wasn't multinational corporations coming up and buying land. What they've actually done is had an impact, a negative impact on all family businesses, including farming family businesses, where it will impact a vast majority of them. So we are urging the government to change course. We've been very clear as a Conservative Party that we would axe the family farm tax if we were lucky enough to get back into government. But what I would urge the government to do right now is listen to those concerns that are being raised from the industry, listen to those concerns that have been raised by us as the official opposition, and change course urgently before it has the negative impact on our farming businesses and food security and indeed food prices further down the line.
Minister, thank you very much indeed. Listening to you, Anna Mikalova. Anna is the Deputy Political Editor at The Mail on Sunday. What do you think of what Robbie Moore's had to say?
Well, I mean, our paper is very supportive of the farmers, absolutely. I think the strange thing about this with the government's approach is they've picked a fight with such a vocal community, but also a community that a lot of people really support. You know, you don't have to be a farmer to think, you know, we have a lot of sympathy for them in this, and I just to raise a very small amount of money, frankly, for the Treasury. So I think it's a complete political blunder. I mean, Isabel, I think you did mention a good point about this is all designed to hit the super rich. Fine. But the problem with that is the way they've designed the thresholds, it sounds like it's rich people. It's, what, a million? But it's not. It's not actually at all.
I keep asking this question to the Conservatives, and they do keep dodging it, because I would like to know, is there a point at which they think there is a suitable threshold? And they don't want to answer that question. I mean, you could say 10 million, you could say 20 million. To most people, that is, you know, asset.
I think the farmers I've spoken to, I think they do say that raising the thresholds, and they do give numbers on it, sort of maybe 5 million first of all, is a good first step. Of course, the farming community very much want the thresholds to be gone, not least because, and I do understand this point as well, say you do set it at 10 million, knowing the Treasury, once you start that, then it'll be 9 million, that'll be 8 million, at the same time as inflation creeps everything up.
Well, Anna, let's now bring in a farmer, and we'll hear what he has to say on this, and we'll come back to you again. And this is James Fairley. James is a potato farmer. What do you think about what you've been hearing, James, today?
I just think that, you know, voicing, your other guest's answer there, it's a very small figure that we're going to raise. I mean, I know it sounds to the general person that it's a lot of money, but it's really not. And to be honest, the figure's wrong. The government getting to the figure for, you know, saying that very few people are going to be affected. I don't know where they've got their land values from.
Would you be one of these people that are going to be affected?
100%. But we thankfully managed to get our affairs in order before the budget. But that only covers me, not my 10-month-old son. Now, I could have an accident in 5 years' time, and he's got to pick up the pieces from there. So we're actually dealing with a very interesting subject, because I'd love to know where they got their values from. That's one thing that's, you know, where are they getting their figures from for the value of land? Because in my rural area in Angus, land is selling for between 17 and 20,000 pounds an acre. So you don't need many acres to get to your million.
You see, Anna, when James talks there, and when the ministers talk before him, or the shadow minister, and you all talk, sometimes people just go blind to all of this. They don't really understand what the figures are that are represented and why it is unfair. They just know there's money involved in all of this. Do you think there's any more simple way to explain this?
I think there's a fairness element.
I think you're right. The principle. People can look at the principle, whether they have the money or not.
And the principle of which, because government is about choices, and of course raising taxes is about choices. And what they've done is they've chosen farmers who, yes, there are some people who have bought up land as a tax break, fine. But when you actually look at actual farmers who, like your guest, will absolutely be affected by this, they are so hard-working. You know, if you're a farmer, it's not some glamorous thing where you just sort of go out and they're breaking their backs because you work 7 days a week.
They don't get any sick leave. All weathers.
And most of it is done for the love of the land, frankly. And you need that land to be preserved as well.
Let's just hear again from James, because we're talking there, Anna's talking about the love of the land and what you're subjected to and whatever. I would reckon as a potato farmer, my friend, many years, this year in particular, you are very exposed to the elements.
100%. I mean, we were actually quite fortunate in our pocket of the country this year. But last year was horrendous. You know, we were dealing in situations where we were working, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning from 7 o'clock in the morning and then back out at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning to keep going to fight the elements. I mean, we're not doing... What we're doing here is we're feeding a nation, and these guys are messing with a system in order to keep everybody going, because the one stable pillar of society is food stability. You don't have food stability, you lose a lot of control of the nation. Well, as we saw.
I think we're sitting around here, and I think we're all united in that being a politician or being a civil servant is a much easier bit of graft than doing what you're doing, James.
Well, I feel that, it really, really boils me that a while ago, Steve Reid, the DEFRA minister, came out and he said they'll just have to they'll have to do more with less. I would openly offer him 100 acres to come and farm it and tell me if he can make a profit.
City Steve. I'm not sure he would be able to. That seems to be the problem, doesn't it? Very out of touch with the rural parts of this country. Thank you very much for telling us your story this morning. James Fairley, potato farmer, host of the Farming Funny podcast. Whilst we still have Anna, I just want to touch on one of the other subjects that came up in our interview there with the Conservative minister, which was obviously this issue with China. And I was trying to just refresh my memory in the last hour about why we really should be concerned about China. And just last year, China was behind cyber attacks on our Ministry of Defence, on our Electoral Commission. The head of the MI6 said that 20,000 Brits had been approached via LinkedIn to sell information to Beijing. And we had 5 people charged under the National Security Act for providing prejudicial information to Beijing. And yet, under the Conservatives as well, there's been a failure to do anything about this, and a shift even under Starmer, cozying up even more to Beijing, obviously because they think there are economic benefits from that. But at what cost?
Well, exactly. And don't forget, the other slightly unnerving element is just how much of our technology is all connected in with China. So you occasionally get these stories about how much of the CCTV cameras around Whitehall are all from Chinese. And China has obviously no qualms about using espionage as a weapon, using infiltration as an important tool in its arsenal. And the objective, usually, with all of this is to, first of all, get to understand the British way of being, the British establishment, how politics works, and then to influence it. It's not just being done for their interests. But I think the other interesting element is Donald Trump has always talk tough on China, but he's invited President Xi to his inauguration. So that will send an interesting message to people like Keir Starmer. Almost sort of, does it suggest that it is OK to continue being a bit more friendly?
Fascinating.
That's not even telling people what your microwave is doing, your fridge is doing, or your television is doing, or whatever it is, and how we're being spied on with those Chinese appliances. Anna, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Just think in future we'll just be able to put you in the kitchen in the morning and talk to you through the fridge. Do that when it all becomes out in the open.
You won't need us either in that case.
Now, OK, we had our farmer friend on there, James, talking about potato farming. And let's see, if it's wet, that's bad news if you grow potatoes.
I grew my own potatoes for the first time last year. It was quite enjoyable.
I doubt you have had the flooding problems that many...
No. What I'm trying to say is I'm hugely sympathetic to how difficult it is to grow
Very good for breaking up the soil, potatoes. Very good for it. Jonathan Vautry, with what's happening to your soil.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. A mild and blustery start to the week for many of us. Looking at the pressure pattern, you'll see plenty of isobars on the chart indicating some quite gusty westerly winds for many of us. We've also got this cold front that's essentially become stuck in the flow and is going to be stalling across northern and western parts of Scotland throughout much of today. Quite a lot of rainfall developing here, so do take care. A rain warning is in force. Northern Ireland, England and Wales, a few showers to watch out for, but generally a much drier day, and we'll hopefully see some brighter, sunnier spells developing at times as well. Quite mild conditions for many of us. Top temperatures across southern areas of England will be around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius, but that blustery wind is going to be with us, so that will just take the edge off the feel of things a touch when you are stepping outside. If you are further towards the north, particularly to the north of this rain band, we do have some slightly cooler conditions here. So for the likes of Shetland and Lerwick, we do have top temperatures here of 8 degrees Celsius. This rain band will still be in place throughout much of Monday night, and the rain warning is in force all the way through until Tuesday, potentially half a month's worth of rain quite widely across the Highlands by the time we reach the middle of Tuesday. And snowmelt as well, with those mild conditions, will also be an issue for some flooding impacts. Generally, temperatures between 6 and 9 degrees Celsius as we start off Tuesday, and we will see this further area of rain move across Northern Ireland and Scotland during the day. A few showers for England and Wales, but generally drier here, and potentially, again, a bit of hazy sunshine, maybe a touch of brightness developing at times. Strong southerly winds, though, in place. Gales around coastal areas in the west. Those winds, again, feeding in some quite mild conditions. Temperatures of 10 to 11 degrees Celsius. But a shift in wind direction to a northerly later on this week does mean that we will eventually start to see some cooler conditions filtering their way in. So from Thursday and Friday, our temperatures are going to be dropping down. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
OK, let's move on to the Great British Giveaway. This week it's your chance to become our biggest ever winner. Why is that, Isabel?
£50,000 up for grabs. It's tax-free and it could be yours.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Even if you don't enter the competition, it's very nice of those of you who send us pictures of your pooches, of your dogs.
Watching us.
Which is a sort of way of babysitting the animal.
And it just shows we're part of the family, doesn't it?
Yeah, so people go about and they make their breakfast and they make their bed and they do various things like that, and they have a shave, and then so do the men have a shave as well after that, and the pooches watch us. So there
Indeed.
we go.
Lots of people getting in touch this morning. You're right there. About Starmer, never hear Keir as he's
Why
being
do you
dubbed.
never call Sir Keir Starmer by his name, Keir Starmer?
I just use all the rhymes. There's so many of them. Farmer, Harmer, Starmer. Never hear Keir. There's some others, but I can't remember them now. It's quite a good name for rhymes. But if I met him, I would call him Sir.
I don't believe in calling people like Trump or, by their surnames, Blair or whatever. They're Tony Blair, Mr. Blair, ex-president.
Sir, isn't it? Sir Tony?
Could well be. Whatever it happens to be. But I think it's a thing in television. There's so much about television grammar that annoys me
No, I
these
know,
days.
but I was just referencing never hear Keir. Anyway.
You said it all morning.
Have I?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm watching you
all right.
here and I take it all into account.
All right, we'll get that in
like
a
you showing any bias, that word that you hate.
Yeah, don't have any bias. I call them all the wrong name, probably, Boris and whatever else. Right, quick point. Lots of you who are showing bias. Paul says, did Starmer row across the North Sea to Norway? That's green and would reduce his carbon footprint. Paul says, for someone who believes in net zero, Starmer's carbon footprint is absolutely massive, the size of a small country.
Yeah, Debbie says, it makes me so angry they can pull out 50 million quid for another country, that's Norway, and they can't pay their own citizens £300 for the winter fuel allowance. So wrong. He would probably say that fuel will become more affordable with this deal with Norway. Graham says, so Keir Starmer's off to Norway now. Has he got Lammy locked up in a cellar at number 10? Or why are we paying for a foreign secretary?
That's a fair point. David Lammy never leaves the shore. The Prime Minister's never here. John says, another week, another trip for Starmer. He does love his travelling. I mean, there are previous Prime Ministers who were afraid to do international travel because once they were away, you know, whilst the mouse is away, whilst the cat's away,
as famously happens,
the mice can play. And look, we've got all this drama with China and infiltration, and where's the Prime Minister?
Well, Margaret Thatcher paid the penalty for that, didn't she? By going to France and then not having a job to come back to. Anyway, I think that music means get to the break. The meaning of Christmas, the true meaning of Christmas. I believe in the true meaning of Christmas, but I would put it to you and all of you out there, who cares? None of you do. Very few of you do anyway. Let's talk about that right after this.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'll wager a few of you are feeling a little bit jaded this morning. Maybe there's been an office party over the weekend or just Christmas festivities in general. Perhaps you've been tackling the Christmas shopping, which is never, in my opinion, a particularly fun job. No. It is carnage out there at the moment. Or maybe you're already indulging in some of those festive treats, whether it's pies or whatever.
As a man,
synonymous with Christmas, yeah.
I would pay anything for a present, with one condition, as long as it's wrapped. The worst thing, the most horrible thing, is to buy presents, but then you're expected to wrap them.
I would wager a lot of men would say that, certainly the men in my life. I always take offence if I don't feel that my husband has taken time or interest in wrapping it. That's part of the easy bit, just to order it on Amazon. Whatever it is.
But they should come. That should be part of the transaction of buying something. It should come wrapped.
Wrapping it with ribbons and writing nice.
Actually, I'm doing an environmental stand on this. It's bad for the environment.
No wrap Christmas.
All that wrapping paper and ribbons and everything.
There you go.
Bad for the environment. That's the only reason I don't do it. Yeah. Anyway, the holiday spirit. The holiday spirit. Why are we even debating this? People call it the holidays or the holiday. It's about the birth of Christ, the Lord Jesus Christ,
Absolutely.
Right? And if you don't get that, then you have forgotten the true meaning of Christmas. And there you go. Director of Affinity at Gospel Churches is Graham Nichols, and commentator Jess Gill joins us now to discuss this. Jess, do you think that aspect of it in praise of the Lord Jesus Christ is gone, is over, is forgotten?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I would say that Christmas overall hasn't lost its meaning. I think if you look at the Christmas spirit in advertising in terms of just going around, like London is full of Christmas lights, and you have people all around going to see their friends and family. Christmas parties are such a big thing. And yes, the birth of Christ is a massive aspect of that, and it's still celebrated, but it is also about seeing friends and families. And
a massive aspect of it is the only aspect of it. It all comes about because of the birth of Christ. Well, it is. So what, you're in praise of the Lord Jesus Coca-Cola then? Because they invented Santa. So what you see on Christmas cards, if it's Santa, it's there because of Coca-Cola, who invented him.
I would say it's more than just Christ. I think it's about what Christmas represents, and it represents spending time with friends and family. And yeah, it makes sense that it's gone beyond Christ when we're becoming a more secular country. And I think if you want more people to return to that, you need to impose more religion. And also the fact that we're importing millions of people a year who aren't Christian, who don't have those values. It's like, what do you expect?
I just don't accept that argument that because lots of people are coming into this country who aren't Christian, that, you know, that we don't need to talk about the meaning of Christmas. Graham Nichols, I presume you'll take a similar position. You know, I had a really beautiful carol service I went to on Saturday, and you know how every now and then you go to one of these events and there was an absolutely brilliant speaker, a guest speaker at this carol service, and he said, and he made us all really think about it. He said, are you today getting just enough Jesus, just enough God to last you for the whole rest of the year so you don't have to think about him? Is this the only time of year you give us 20 minutes for a carol service? And for most people, that might be the case. Have we totally lost touch, do you think, Graham?
I think to some degree. I was speaking at my own carol service, or our own carol service, last night. There's no lack of interest in it. There was hundreds of people there, and it was packed out. But your speaker sounds great. Sounds much better. Really challenging you to think, am I just giving it a little section? People want some sense of something at Christmas, which is why loads of people turn up to carol services and some events. And I don't decry all the family meetups and all the lovely lights in town centres and Christmas trees and everything else. That's all good stuff and good fun. But actually, if you want something that will last, you need to understand what Christmas is all about, or more importantly, what the birth of Jesus is all about, what the death of Jesus is all about, what the life of Jesus is all about. And that's what we're trying to do as church, to tell people about that.
But my friend, do you accept then that there are two Christmases? Do you accept that there is that which you have just described, and that's fair enough, but then there's this whole other aspect of it, which is all fluffy and Santa and presents.
An elf on the shelf.
An elf on the shelf. The frustrating thing, weirdly, is that actually all the tinselly stuff is not particularly pleasing and satisfying people. It's a hassle. I'm with you on wrapping presents, by the way. I'm an engineer. And I still can't wrap a present up. You ask my wife. So I'm totally with you on that. But there's more than that in terms of frustration and family tensions and all those things.
Pressure to
cook. Actually, the Christmas we tried to make it isn't satisfying, because the only satisfying thing is knowing God through Jesus Christ, and that's what the church is all about. Telling people about that and telling people how they can live and how they can know hope and security and future. And that's what will really encourage people in the dark nights of winter.
Right. But has Santa got a role in your Christmas?
It's a really disputed thing about whether you tell children that Santa doesn't exist. I'm fully in favour.
Hang on, this is a family show.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry if I've probably lost my my ability to ever come back on you again. I have offended people by saying this. I just think Jesus is not a myth, and that other person is. So I like to try and separate myth and fact. So yeah, I'm really sorry.
But you believe, Jess, there's room for both then?
I'm not against Christianity. I'm not against Christianity, and I fully respect and appreciate that is a part of it. But I think the mystical aspect is what is great about Christmas. I mean, if you look at Charles Dickens, I don't think he's some woke leftist reactionary who wants to ban Christmas. In A Christmas Carol, I was just reading A Christmas Carol, he doesn't mention Christ at all in the full meaning, how Scrooge finds Christmas. And it's about three spirits. I don't think that relates to Christianity necessarily. So I think there are different components of Christmas, including friends and family, and that was in the Victorian era. So no, I don't think we're getting rid of the meaning of Christmas by getting rid of Christ.
You two, I hope you've been a good little boy and girl, and that Christmas goes well for you in whatever form it comes in. So I'll just say yo ho ho to you and bye bye. Thank you very much indeed. God bless. Okay.
Thank you both. I'm going to go to church on Christmas Day. I am. Does that make me extra good?
No, that makes you tick the minimal boxes.
The minimal boxes.
This is like, oh, we'll do that and it'll be okay, as your preacher said, for the next...
No, it won't be just... I don't go just once a year, but it's not a regular thing anymore. But, it's something. It's something.
Yeah, it's better than nothing.
It's
and
better
actually,
than nothing.
I don't think that Christmas really begins until you go to a carol concert.
Yeah.
You get carol concerts,
love a good carol service. Oh, once in Royal... a solo with a little boy singing. Oh, it's just gorgeous. Anyway, here at GB News, we haven't obviously forgotten the true meaning of Christmas, and during Advent we are doing a countdown for you to Christmas Day, hearing from church ministers across the country.
Each day they have a special message for you to celebrate the festive season in whatever way you do.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 16.
Hi, I'm Chris Tufnell. I'm the vicar of Uterbridge Parish Church near Sheffield. Chaos or calm? Which word better describes your experience of Christmas? The Christmas cards give us pictures of idyllic calm, don't they? Robins on snow-covered postboxes, Mary and Joseph having a quiet night in. But that's not what Christmas feels like for many of us. And in reality, I'm sure it's not what that first Christmas felt like either. After all, Mary went through childbirth in a stable, and I'm pretty sure it won't have been calm like on the Christmas cards. But it does say in the Bible that after the shepherds had gone, Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. She had good reason to ponder these things. After all, they were happening to her. But I think that we have good reason to ponder these things as well. I think it's hard to deny that Jesus has influenced this world more than anyone else who's ever lived. That's a big claim, I know, but I think it's true. And so might you, this Christmas, like Mary, find some calm amid the chaos to ponder this man who has changed our world forever. Happy Christmas.
I'm just wondering if you're Muslim or some other religion, does it have any significance to you at all? If you're Jewish, does it matter to you to celebrate it anyway? Here is Mr. Paul Coyte to tell us how he celebrates it.
I'd like to say I will celebrate firstly by watching the greatest Christmas film of all time, It's a Wonderful Life.
It is.
Have you seen it? Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Have you seen it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is a wonderful film.
There's also another black and white film full of snow and things called The Bishop's Wife.
Cary Grant, David Niven.
Yeah.
That's a good
Cary Grant falls in love. Cary Grant is an angel and falls in love with David Niven's wife, which he's not supposed to do. And if he kisses her, he will then become mortalised.
Right.
And not be an angel anymore.
Right.
Keep quiet. Somebody seems you're trying to tell a story here of Christmas and people are enjoying. Let's get to the break. Let's get to the break. No, we're not getting to the break. Right. So what were you saying?
So It's a Wonderful Life. 78 years ago this week it was released.
Mm-hmm.
James Stewart. And I've been in tears. I've seen it a couple of times, ended up in tears, so I can't watch it anymore. I met...
How many years did you say?
78 years it came out. Okay. I met the girl who played Zuzu.
No.
Carolyn Grimes.
Yeah.
And I still have her scarf.
Of course you do.
That is amazing.
Because she left this lovely scarf in the studio, and I thought, oh...
I'll have that.
I'll have that. So, yeah.
That's worth money.
Do you think so?
I hired a cinema for my 50th birthday.
Did you?
And screened It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, and not a dry eye in the house?
Not a dry in the sofa.
Oh.
Lovely idea.
So we'll see you right after this break with Paul on the Sport.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, the A167 is closed each way of the gates head flyover for safety checks. In Fermanagh, the A509 is closed in both directions between Timor and Derry Lynn after an accident yesterday evening. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for emergency repairs to storm damage. In Powys, the A490 is closed off the A458 at Welshpool after an accident. The M42 in Warwick has blocked southbound where a car overturned at junction 9 at Curdworth, causing queues. On the M25 in Essex, there are long anti-clockwise delays heading away from junction 30, the A13 towards 28 for the A12 after overnight roadworks overran earlier on. And in London, the Blackwall Tunnel is closed southbound for an investigation causing queues. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation. You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Big news on Match of the Day. This is the lineup that's predicted for the new season.
I've got a great picture for you. Have a look at this. Now look, this is a picture of the Scottish captain and the Welsh captain, which hopefully we have.
Question of sport?
No, of playing football. Kenny Dalglish.
Yeah.
Look, there's Kenny Dalglish on the left.
And
Terry Yorth on the right. And they are the dads of Kelly Cates.
Yes.
And Gabby Logan.
Oh, I didn't know Gabby Logan had a famous father.
Terry
Yorath,
yeah, who played for Leeds and played for Wales. And
well,
then there's Kenny Dalglish. I'd like to be able to say that's Mark Chapman's dad in the middle, but it's not. But there you go.
The referee's outfit's hideous.
I know, and there she is, and there's Kelly Cates there. So it looks like they haven't confirmed it yet, but everybody's saying the same thing. It looks like Kelly Cates is going to move them from Sky.
Well, she's a very good host.
She is very good. Does
good.
lots of work for the BBC anyway. So she's going to host along with Mark Chapman and Gabby Logan. They're going to take turns. So that's how the match of the day is.
Gabby Logan is superb.
She is superb.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very good.
Absolutely.
But amazing they can hire 3 people for the price of 1 on that salary.
I know.
Not to have a dig at him, but...
Nobody's bigger than the show. Nobody's bigger than the show. Do you want to do a few birthdays?
Yes, please.
Yeah. OK, first one, please. Some sporting birthdays for you.
Okay.
Haven't played this for a while, Eamonn. You could be out of practice. I'm a little bit worried about this.
Yes, you're quite right.
Right, first one. Birthday is...
Drum roll.
Did I tell you? Dennis Wise, there he is. The late Dennis Wise. I say the late, it was only that he came late. He's very much alive, of course.
I would say
How old is Dennis Wise today?
He has to be in his 50s. He's got to be 53.
53 for Dennis Wise, played for Chelsea, of course, Chelsea captain.
I'm going to go 50.
58 is the answer. He's a bit older. OK, it was just one to warm up.
He's small and you can't often tell.
He's a little fella, isn't he? Yeah, he's a lovely player, though. We all want to mess with Dennis Wise.
Very good.
Well, from small to very large.
OK.
West Indian bowler. Now, that's Joel Garner. Joel Garner, 6'8", played between 1979 and 1989 for the West Indies. One of the greatest bowlers. So think of the date, think of the age.
I'd say he's 75.
75 for Joel Garner?
I would say he is 65.
72. You know what his nickname was?
What?
Big Bird, because he was so tall. Yeah, it was.
You know, that's what they call Isabel.
Is it? Well, look,
they do.
Really? Well, look, have a look. Look, there he is there. There he is playing against...
I'm back to Isabel's school with her and they said, here's that Big Bird Isabel.
Stop it.
Here she is.
I was very sporty. Can't help it if I had big thighs back then.
OK.
He always goes on about this.
You got one more? One more? One more? Or are we going to be in big trouble?
One more.
OK, one more for now. Who's this?
Oh, who's that?
That's a darts player.
It's Bobby George.
Bobby George, yes, Bobby George.
You know, he was very glamorous, Bobby George.
Is he not dead?
No, he's still alive. Yeah, I hope so, anyway.
Right. Bobby George would be 80.
Close. Very close.
I have no idea.
One either way. Which way are you going to go?
81.
No, 79.
Oh,
I'm useless at this game.
Good. Thank you very much indeed, Miss Hall. Thank you very much indeed. We're back with the newspapers right after this.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Joining me now is food historian and author of Christmas with Dickens, Pen Vogler. Pen, let's start with Christmas Carol. Did A Christmas Carol change Britain's view of Christmas?
I think it did, enormously. Before then, people were beginning to think, as they do now, that Christmas might be being a little bit commercial. It was too much food and drink, not enough kind of seriousness or not enough kind of love and family. And what Dickens did with A Christmas Carol was show people who were coming to the cities, who were kind of losing their rural history, a new way of celebrating Christmas, that a real, just a family could get together and love and kind of get around the table together. And whereas before, a lot of those kind of Christmas dishes would have been seasonal, lots of people would have eaten them at different times of the year, Dickens does two things. He takes the goose, which is what the Cratchits are going to eat, and he turns it to a turkey, much bigger, meatier, kind of more generous. And then he takes this thing that he never calls Christmas pudding in A Christmas Carol. There's no Christmas pudding. He only calls it plum pudding, and he anchors it to that day. And interestingly, after then, people start publishing recipes for Christmas pudding, and it starts getting its name, Christmas pudding, from plum pudding. And I think all of that really comes from A Christmas Carol.
you say, becomes a Christmas pudding almost immediately after A Christmas Carol is published.
Yes, I mean, it's occasionally called Christmas pudding before, but not often. And then a very famous for the time, the kind of Delia Smith of her day, lady called Eliza Acton, publishes a recipe called The Author's Christmas Pudding in 1845. And we know she's a big Dickens fan because she sent a copy of her cookbook to him.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Chris and Dawn have got the papers and the stories that are jumping out, and the winter fuel payments still making headlines, Chris.
Yeah, it's in the Daily Express, 750,000 elderly people facing being left in the cold. And actually, what I'd like to say with this one, this is a Daily Express actually doing a public service, in as much as they're saying to the pensioners that if you don't get yourself your winter fuel allowance, so if you don't go online and get your pension credit sorted out by Saturday, you will fall foul of this new legislation.
Well, if you start now, you might get it done by Saturday.
Exactly.
It takes about 6 days to fill in the form. You tried, didn't you?
I did try, yeah.
How many pages?
247 questions, 48 pages.
You're not serious.
Yeah. No, I am serious. I'm deadly serious. I actually downloaded the form and had to go at filling it in for my mum. Not that she needs it, by the way. I'm looking after her. But I had to go at filling it, and I got halfway through before I lost the will to live.
Yeah.
Which I think is the point. They want you to lose the will to live.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't need to be like that, because I went to the government website to do something about stocking up a company, and actually Company's House have got a very simple form, and within 15 minutes I struck off a company. So it can be done.
Yeah, of course it can.
So if the government really wants to allow these people access their credit.
These are vulnerable people who are not good with computers, who are stressed, because, you know, they're talking about anyone with assets over 11,000 is not eligible for pension.
It's ridiculous. I mean, you need to be on a pittance, so it's like less than 200.
218 quid a week.
Yeah, that's everything, to pay for everything, your food, your heating, your absolutely everything. And even if you do fill it in now, there's a backlog in civil servants processing it, so you're not going to get any money through until spring.
So the government needs to defer this date,
frozen
basically.
to death, yeah.
Dawn, where do you stand on bullying and attempts within Parliament to have anti-bullying training implemented?
Get it correct, Mr. Holmes. This is behaviour code awareness training. Basically, it's we are paying for MPs to learn how to be nice to one another, no bullying or harassment, and new returning MPs are invited to attend these seminars, teaching them how to be nice people and not be bullies to one another. And there are 5 MPs are refusing, quite rightly, in my opinion, to do this ridiculous thing. One of them is Nigel Farage. Bullying has been a problem. I'm not downplaying bullying, but I mean, seriously, if you need lectures and seminars on how to not bully people, I mean...
Well, that would be PM question time over and done with, wouldn't it?
Well, exactly.
Because over that dispatch box, the way they talk to each other...
Stop shouting at me. Yeah, I mean...
It's not edifying in any way, shape or form.
You see, this is very strange. I would have initially your view on that, but I sit on a board and we had to undergo sexual behaviour, an appropriate sexual behaviour course. We trained in this, and you said, oh, who the heck, who needs this? You know, what's this all about? And then you realise that there are obviously a lot of people who do need it, and because you think the way you think and you're relatively enlightened about these things, it's not to say that everybody
and again,
is.
There's a generation thing as well. I mean, you can make a joke to me as a woman now of a certain age, but you probably couldn't say it to someone in their 20s, because we had the same sort of like cultural background and we understand the stuff that went on in the 70s, 80s, and we'll have a giggle about it, but someone in their 20s might think, oh my God, that's so offensive. So, yeah, maybe it's needed then, but I'm sorry.
Can we squeeze in the story about Santa Paws, because I teased it last hour? It's in the Daily Star, your paper of choice.
Well, only because it's a bit of fun and it's grim at the moment. This is Christmas doggies. It's the Dachshund, is that how you say it?
Dachshund, yeah.
Yeah, annual Hyde Park sausage walk was over the weekend, and they've all dressed their little dogs up, sausage dogs, in Santa outfits, and they all look very cute. Can you see it?
To be
now?
fair,
Oh, you've got the
this
pictures
is
there.
a dog that's come back in vogue, isn't it? It is quite a beautiful dog now.
It's lovely.
I mean, it went out of fashion for a very long
I
time.
always feel sorry for them. I always think they must want longer legs.
Well, they
It must be
can't
so
jump
annoying.
up, can they, or
It must be
anything,
so
or sit
annoying.
up properly.
Especially when it's wet and if you're going through snow, that's not fun.
And my dog is a cross between a dachshund and a border collie.
Oh, my
Think
gosh.
on that one. Here's the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. A mild and blustery start to the week for many of us. Looking at the pressure pattern, you'll see plenty of isobars on the chart indicating some quite gusty westerly winds for many of us. We've also got this cold front that's essentially become stuck in the flow and is going to be stalling across northern and western parts of Scotland throughout much of today. Quite a lot of rainfall developing here, so do take care. A rain warning is in force. Northern Ireland, England and Wales, a few showers to watch out for, but generally a much drier day, and we'll hopefully see some brighter, sunnier spells developing at times as well. Quite mild conditions for many of us. Top temperatures across southern areas of England will be around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius, but that blustery wind is going to be with us, so that will just take the edge off the feel of things a touch when you are stepping outside. If you are further towards the north, particularly to the north of this rain band, we do have some slightly cooler conditions here. So for the likes of Shetland and Lerwick, we do have top temperatures here of 8 degrees Celsius. This rain band will still be in place throughout much of Monday night, and the rain warning is in force all the way through until Tuesday, potentially half a month's worth of rain quite widely across the Highlands by the time we reach the middle of Tuesday. And snowmelt as well with those mild conditions will also be an issue for some flooding impacts. Generally, temperatures between 6 and 9 degrees Celsius as we start off Tuesday, and we will see this further area of rain move across Northern Ireland and Scotland during the day. A few showers for England and Wales, but generally drier here, and potentially, again, a bit of hazy sunshine, maybe a touch of brightness developing at times. Strong southerly winds, though, in place. Gales around coastal areas in the west. Those winds, again, feeding in some quite mild conditions. Temperatures of 10 to 11 degrees Celsius. But a shift in wind direction to a northerly later on this week does mean that we will eventually start to see some cooler conditions filtering their way in. So from Thursday and Friday, our temperatures are going to be dropping down. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, the A167 is closed in both directions over the Gateshead flyover for safety checks. In Fermanagh, the A509 is closed in both directions between Timor and Derry Lynn after an accident yesterday evening. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for emergency repairs to storm damage. In Powys, the A490 is closed in both directions off the A458 at Welshpool after an accident. The M42 in Warwickshire is blocked southbound, where a car's overturned at junction 9 at Curdworth, with queues from junction 10 at Tamworth. On the M25 in Essex, there are long anti-clockwise delays heading away from junction 30 for the A13 towards 28 for the A12 after overnight roadworks overran earlier. And on the M25 in Surrey, the inside lanes close clockwise after an accident between junctions 9 and 10 from Netherhead to the A3, causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The identity of a Chinese spy could be named by MPs using parliamentary privilege.
The alleged spy, known as H6, has been described as having an unusual degree of trust with Prince Andrew and is reported to have met with 2 former prime ministers.
He was banned from the UK in 2023 by former Home Secretary Suella Braverman when it was believed he was acting on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party.
The Duke of York insists no sensitive matters were used or discussed and says all contact stopped following government advice.
Well, let's talk to the deputy editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray, on this one for your take. This is causing a lot of excitement, Freddie. This will be worth waiting for when we get to Freddie. Here he is, live by satellite.
Good morning.
Freddie, there you are. No light on you, as usual. We're used to that. And I thought he was told to get a light the last time I was here. But anyway, he obviously... It's to do with the winter fuel payment. Ah, right, OK. Well, can you shed any light on this Chinese operative, or alleged operative, and you know what's going to happen here? It looks like he's going to be named.
It looks like he will be named, and I think the embarrassment will go deeper than just the Duke of York and the royal family. It's clear, not just with this spy, but the Chinese Front, the United Workers Front Department, which is effectively a Chinese spy operation, although it poses as something else. In the last 20 years, that organisation has infiltrated Britain, British institutions, top British institutions, at an extraordinary level. And I find it quite funny, actually, Tom Tugendhat grandstanding rather a lot in the last few days about how embarrassing it is for Prince Andrew, he's a useful idiot and so on. But Tom Tugendhat himself, his China research group, which was set up to be an anti-China group, was found to have had 2 people who seem to have been compromised by China. And so I think this is a real embarrassment, not just for the royal family, but for the British establishment at almost every level. And that's political, royal, educational, you name it, we've sold out to China.
A government minister has come out today urging caution about MPs and his colleagues from all different political parties using their parliamentary privilege, which would mean that they could out this alleged spy without being sued. He says that this should be exercised with caution, and because of the involvement of the security services in all of this, he says he won't personally be queuing up to do it. What's your view on this? I mean, you look at the front of the Daily Mail today and they say the China spy must be named.
Well, I think parliamentary privilege is a good thing. I think it enables people to be named when they can't be in the press, and I think that's a healthy thing. I suspect there's a lot of security back and forth between our intelligence agencies and China going on at the moment, because China desperately doesn't want this to happen. China makes out in London that the United Front Workers Department is a sort of legitimate arm of foreign... I've got some strange thumb pointing upside down in front of me. Sorry, China makes out that there is that its United Front Workers Department is some legitimate source of foreign influence peddling, and I think the point is it's clearly becoming evident that it is no longer that it has not been that for some time.
Yeah.
And it's good that we're starting to realise it.
And could you see, Freddie, a lot of people may point out, well, what on earth use would Prince Andrew have been to the Chinese anyway? Could you speculate onto what access Prince Andrew could have given or what use he may have been?
Well, that's the funniest part of the story for me, is Prince Andrew's office insisting that nothing of a sensitive nature was discussed, as if Prince Andrew knows what is of a sensitive nature. I think the thing that he gave to China, and this is the key point, is access to politicians and the infiltration into political circles and other institutional circles that they want to influence, that they want to control, and sometimes that they want to buy.
I was reading that obviously we're aware that China is sort of circling Taiwan and has been quite forceful, to say the least, in Hong Kong. And one of the reasons behind perhaps infiltrating the West in the way that we've been experiencing is that they will increase our dependency on China to such an extent that we wouldn't want to intervene if they did take action in trying to invade or take over Taiwan, which is one school of thought. But it's worth remembering all the reasons why China is of concern. I mean, not least the Uyghur genocide. Obviously, COVID, we know, emanated from a Wuhan lab. We know that Xi Jinping's a close ally of President Putin, and this issue with Taiwan and Hong Kong. Is Trump right to invite Xi Jinping to his inauguration? And do you think, to a certain extent, our government will take a lead from America on this?
Well, I mean, China is a major world power. It's the second most important power in the world. Britain is not in any position to stand up to it in a great diplomatic sense. However, we can stop ourselves selling out or just exposing ourselves to Chinese interests. And we need to be realistic about what China is. And that means looking at the way it behaves. And COVID, you mentioned COVID. COVID is a very good example. We still don't really know about the origins of COVID because China won't tell us. And that is probably the biggest thing that's happened in our lifetimes in terms of damage to the economy, damage to our children, and so on. And yet we don't know. And that tells you what China is like. And I think it's odd that it's taken the COVID pandemic for Western politicians to really wake up. Because you go back to the 2010s when this Prince Andrew story started, and David Cameron and the Tories were kowtowing to China. They were desperate for Chinese investment. And it's really been the British establishment's willingness to sell out, essentially, that has enabled China to get such a foothold within our institutions.
Now, what we want you to get a foothold on is Santa. And when you're writing the note to go up the chimney, you just write, "Dear Santa, I have been a very good boy. Please could you send me a big, beautiful ring light for my computer so that when I appear in GB News, I will look even more beautiful than I am." That's all you got to do. That's it.
I wrote to Xi Jinping last year.
It's got lost in the post.
It got lost in the post.
Oh dear.
I will be bright and sparkly next time I'm on, if you'll have me.
Well,
good man. Good
always.
Man. Thank you very much indeed. See ya. Bye-bye. Well, the Prime Minister is in Norway today, launching a new green energy deal before joining other world leaders at a defence summit.
And travelling with him is our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who joins us. Give us an update this morning.
Welcome to Bergen in Norway, where the Prime Minister is on a trip meeting the Norwegian PM. He will be going later to Estonia as well. But in Norway, it's all about green energy and growth. We hear those words a lot, don't we, from the government? They haven't managed to generate growth much so far, but it's their number one mission, and they believe that green energy can play a big part in that. So today with Norway, they're announcing what they're calling the Green Industrial Partnership. And a lot of this is to do with carbon capture and storage. Norway is a leader in this. Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, announced £20 billion to be invested in this over the next few years. We also heard a lot from him on Friday, didn't we, about wind farms and so on and so forth. The government is convinced that net zero, that it's a means to bring growth, to bring jobs, to bring investment. They see it as an opportunity really, rather than a threat. So that will be happening in Norway. Then the Prime Minister will be getting back on the plane, but with the Norwegian PM, they'll be heading across to Estonia. Now, that will be for the Joint Expeditionary Force Summit. It's been going 10 years, it's led by Britain, and it's a security and defence coalition of the UK, the Nordic countries and Baltic states. The idea is that their forces can train together, can work together, and can be in a state of readiness should they need to be deployed. So obviously defence and security uppermost in European minds, given what's going on in Ukraine. A real wake-up jolt that wasn't a couple of years ago. And also, of course, with Donald Trump coming in January of next year, the new American president has been very, very clear that he feels much of Europe does not pay its way in defence. He wants to see that change. So I think that will be really focusing minds here in Europe.
Forster with that update for us from a festive-looking Bergen this morning, it must be said, in Norway. Looking very lovely behind her there. Lots of you with opinions about Sir Keir Starmer being on his travels again. Rosa says, calling two-tier Never Hear Keir by his full name, Sir Keir Starmer, would be a sign of respect that he has to earn.
Well, the farmers would like him to be with them today there at the London Palladium. Yeah, the theatre. They're set to discuss the next steps in their fight against the government's so-called family farm tax later.
Well, the doors are being opened to the London Palladium by the owner, Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber, who joined last month's demonstration. Our reporter, Adam Cherry, joins us now from the Palladium. Good morning to you, Adam. This is going to be quite an experience for the London Theatre, a sort of agricultural takeover. Tell us more.
Morning, guys. Yeah, something slightly different for the London Palladium. The event starts at 12 o'clock today, midday today until 3 o'clock. Thousands of farmers descending upon the London Palladium. It's the latest in a series of protests. We saw them take over Whitehall just last week and again also in November. It's been organised today by Saving Family Farms, that group that organised the big protest with all the tractors along Whitehall in November. And of course they're protesting against the measures we saw in the budget at the end of October. So I'll just read you a brief statement of what we can expect today. So the organisers say it promises to be a powerful event in our ongoing efforts to influence government policy. We need to make sure the true effect of these proposed policies are understood so as not to stifle the growth of businesses and protect the future of our industries. We'll also hear from the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, who's expected to say that businesses will be bearing the full cost of Labour's decisions and that Labour essentially misled the public before the election, cozied up to business, and then upon election have moved in a different direction. Of course, the government themselves say their commitment to business is ironclad. They've retained full expensing and they've frozen corporation tax, but they have that £22 billion black hole to fill, the one we've heard so much about. So lots of speeches coming later today. We'll be here throughout the event covering it in full on GB News, so look forward to that, and you'll see later on today the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Thanks very much, Adam. With the time at 8:12, let's take a look now at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. And it's thought close to 1,000 people might have been killed after a cyclone has torn through the French territory of Mayotte in the Indian Ocean. The cyclone was the strongest storm in nearly 90 years, with winds of over 200 kilometres an hour, ripping off roofs and destroying buildings.
Britain has had diplomatic contact with the rebel group that toppled the Assad regime, says David Lammy, as he announced £50 million worth of humanitarian aid for vulnerable Syrians. £30 million of that will go to Syria for food, shelter and emergency health care, while £10 million will go to the World Food Programme in Lebanon and £10 million to the UN's refugee agency in Jordan.
We want to see a Syrian-led and a Syrian-owned future, and we want one that is representative and inclusive. That is what partners in the region and allies, close allies, signed up to yesterday, and that's what we'll be encouraging.
The Israeli military has carried out air and ground attacks on Gaza over the weekend, and according to a local hospital, they've hit a school area with multiple casualties reported. In response, the Israeli military statement stated that they'd struck a terrorist cell in Gaza City, as well as a terrorist meeting point.
Now, all this business about wrapping up Christmas presents and whatever, Debbie, thank you very much indeed. Debbie's solution to presents at Christmas is put all of them in one bag. That's what I do. You tape the bag up and you put a name and a bow.
Oh, like a pretty bag,
and it's
Christmas
done.
bag. Yeah,
she didn't say it was
and
pretty.
then just stuff some tissue
she just
paper
says put
in the
all
top.
in one bag, in one big bowl, and that's
There
it.
you go. Can you manage that?
But I could manage that.
Oh, good.
Brian says, Christmas when I was young, and this is worth thinking about, was a stocking full of fruit. There was pomegranates, banana, apple, orange and pears. Oh, in a selection box. Do kids still get selection boxes today? Do your kids get selection boxes?
Not really.
No? Oh, I'll have a selection box if they don't want it. And you got one big toy and new clothing, and that was it. So you got your fruit bag, you got your selection box, which was chocolate bars, and then you got one big toy and new
That's
clothing.
pretty much what I had in a stocking as well, I think.
Yeah.
And then lots of you talking about whether or not we've lost the meaning. Joyce says, of course, the meaning's been lost. Dean says, the meanings change, get over it. It's about what you want it to be about, family sharing, family, taking a break, and, yes, religion. And Peter says, the meaning of Christmas is about the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ.
You see, sorry, who said it was about everything?
Dean.
Dean. Well, that means Dean stands for nothing.
Barbara says, Jesus is the reason for the season.
The reason
like
for the
that.
season. Very good. But you see, it depends. I mean, do we take part in, if you're not of that religion, do you take part in Jewish festivals? Do you take part in Diwali, for instance, or anything like that? I'm for anybody who's having a hoo-ha or a party. I'm for all of it. I don't mind at all. But let us know your view on that. Here's Jonathan Vautry. He has the weather.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. A mild and blustery start to the week for many of us. Looking at the pressure pattern, you'll see plenty of isobars on the chart indicating some quite gusty westerly winds for many of us. We've also got this cold front that's essentially become stuck in the flow and is going to be stalling across northern and western parts of Scotland throughout much of today. Quite a lot of rainfall developing here, so do take care. A rain warning is in force. Northern Ireland, England and Wales, a few showers to watch out for, but generally a much drier day, and we'll hopefully see some brighter, sunnier spells developing at times as well. Quite mild conditions for many of us. Top temperatures across southern areas of England will be around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius, but that blustery wind is going to be with us, so that will just take the edge off the feel of things a touch when you are stepping outside. If you are further towards the north, particularly to the north of this rain band, we do have some slightly cooler conditions here. So for the likes of Shetland and Lerwick, we do have top temperatures here of 8 degrees Celsius. This rain band will still be in place throughout much of Monday night, and the rain warning is in force all the way through until Tuesday, potentially half a month's worth of rain quite widely across the Highlands by the time we reach the middle of Tuesday. And snow melt as well with those mild conditions will also be an issue for some flooding impacts. Generally, temperatures between 6 and 9 degrees Celsius as we start off Tuesday, and we will see this further area of rain move across Northern Ireland and Scotland during the day. A few showers for England and Wales, but generally drier here, and potentially, again, a bit of hazy sunshine, maybe a touch of brightness developing at times. Strong southerly winds, though, in place. Gales around coastal areas in the west. Those winds, again, feeding in some quite mild conditions. Temperatures of 10 to 11 degrees Celsius. But a shift in wind direction to a northerly later on this week does mean that we will eventually start to see some cooler conditions filtering their way in. So from Thursday and Friday, our temperatures are going to be dropping down. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
And with the time at 8:18, it is time for the Great British Giveaway, your chance to become our biggest ever winner. Why is that? Because you could win an incredible £50,000 and it's tax-free. It's an amazing sum of money and it could make your year, your new year, your old year, every year and everything in between. Here's how you do it.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Good luck indeed. Paul Coit is here next with all your sport.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, it's interesting because I haven't actually been told specifically what I've done, which has resulted in me being removed from my committee position, which was head of daytime. I started a podcast in September in which I interviewed Charlie Bentley-Astor, who's a detransitioner. I then also interviewed Graham Linehan and I wrote an article for his Substack. And shortly after that, I was told that I had been suspended and the university union started an investigation into me. And that very quickly became apparent to me that it was an interrogation of my gender-critical views rather than any sort of misconduct that I had been alleged to.
Right. And Graham Linehan has been outspoken on issues relating to transgender ism, whatever you want to call it, gender ideology. And so perhaps just by having associated yourself with him as a controversial figure, that was why the investigation happened, you suspect?
Yes, and already it's quite clear that guilt by association is a crime that you can commit within university societies. I actually purchased my free speech union membership way before this all happened, when a friend helped me edit the episode with Charlie, and he got in trouble with a separate society who told him that he must disassociate himself from me, and if he didn't, further measures would be taken. So at that point, I thought, wow, I better put some damage control in place and purchase my membership in case anything happens to me.
So this decision is made by the student union, right? Is that made up of fellow students? Or who's making this call?
Well, that's actually part of my appeal. So the process has been completely improper. They haven't followed their own guidelines. There are two different guidelines as to whether a complaint is dealt with the society itself, so Leeds Student Radio, or the union, and it's basically been a mishmash of both. So it's been an improper procedure, but it is, as far as I'm aware, it's the student union who's decided to remove me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, so what do you think? Every day we run one of these polls and we ask you your question on the poll of today. Today it is...
Well, the government is looking to shake up local government, possibly even cancelling some local elections next year, abolishing district councils, more elected mayors. So we're asking, should more power indeed be devolved to local councils? We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure to stay tuned. The final result will be announced in Martin Daubney's show, and we'll have our own little tally in around an hour's time.
OK. All the polls are listed on gbnews.com/poll. So the question is what?
Should more power be devolved to some local councils, I think, was the line, yeah.
Fascinating. Anyway, first poll with the sport.
Manchester City won, Manchester United 2. How about that last night?
Wouldn't have predicted it, mate. I would not have seen that coming. I was sort of packing up at the end of it all, and that was the end of that. But 5 minutes left on the clock and the whole turnaround.
Are you a shouter, screamer, punch of the era?
I wasn't overly impressed. I don't think we deserved to win, but it was a derby.
Who cares sometimes,
and it was beating Pep Guardiola, and who cares? You're
Absolutely.
Quite right. Who cares?
A win is a win is a win is a win.
That's it.
Yes,
win is a win. And a horse is a horse, of course, of course.
And no one can talk to a horse, of course.
Unless the horse...
What did I start?
It's the famous Mr.
Ed.
Mm-hmm. Manchester City then. Honestly, it is a crisis. There's no question about it. There's a crisis at Manchester City.
Definitely.
Something's going wrong. They can't put their finger on it. Is it Rodri because the midfielder went and he's the Ballon d'Or winner and they're missing him? And are the players getting older and is everything... It's almost like the perfect storm. Everything seems to be going wrong. Pep is all over the place and he doesn't know what to do with his hands. This is what he said after the game yesterday. Does he look like a man who's comfortable? See what you think.
But it's not about this situation. This situation happened many times. I don't have defense, so I'm the boss, I'm the manager. I have to find a solution, and I don't find a solution. So this is a big club, and big club, when you lose 8-10, something wrong has happened. But I'm the boss, I'm the manager, and I'm not good enough. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, he looks possessed.
What am I going to do? What am I going to do? This is something he's not used to.
He's looking to walk. He's just signed a new 5-year deal or whatever.
No, so he's not going to walk.
No, he is going to walk.
Oh, you think he will?
Yeah, he signed it, and he's locked into it now, unless the club turn around and say, you're obviously Fruit Loop, so... Yeah.
But if he walks, he doesn't get paid.
No, but he'll come to an arrangement with the club that will say, look, we can make this painful or we can make it easy, and they say, well, instead of us paying you 5 years, we'll pay you 1 year. Bye-bye.
I was hearing talk yesterday, and amongst footballers saying, maybe Pep would get fired. I just can't see that ever happening. I mean, possibly you say walking. It's a possibility. Yeah, I would never dream of getting rid of him.
He's the best manager in the world. I mean,
because he knows he's got to rebuild now.
Yeah.
And this is a tricky time for Man City. And... you know what? They've had their fun. But the thing is, every club goes through this. You had it with Manchester United after Sir Alex went, all the success, then it's gone. And Arsenal have done it. Liverpool have had it.
Where have Liverpool had it?
Well, Liverpool had it after the 70s, and then that disappeared.
Yeah, but I'm saying Klopp came in, and then the succession from Klopp has been seamless.
But that's there. But what I'm talking about is in history when you have great teams. But anyway, we'll see how we go. I mean, it's not going well for Man City, but Spurs, Manchester United will be on Thursday in the Carabao Cup, which we're looking forward to. Spurs beat Southampton 5-0. 5-0 up at half-time. All very good. And, the job was done. Southampton really poor. Russell Martin... so he wasn't even sacked in the morning. They didn't even wait for this morning. They did it straight after the game. Yeah. So they're looking for a new manager now.
So Celtic have taken home the first silverware of the season. Congratulations to them. That's
absolutely.
The League Cup yesterday. Gary O'Neill and Russell Martin, both history.
Yeah, they are. So we've spoken about Russell Martin. Gary O'Neill at Wolves. He was, I mean, you see him after the game that they lost against Ipswich, and he's like, he's talking about the players. He then was throwing the players under the bus. But then again, he's like, what can I do with these players? And finally, he got the push. They're talking about a fella called Vitor Pereira, who's Portuguese. He's the manager of Al-Shabaab in Saudi Arabia, formerly from Porto and Olympiacos. Yeah, I'd give it to David Moyes. If I was them, I'd go to David Moyes.
Well, a British manager will be a rarity, as you see there. Those two going, it's just very, very sad. It's just going to be another foreign coach. Yeah. And I'm not off the belief that foreign coaches make our game better.
Well, why not?
All this playing out from the back and all this rubbish. I've got to play out from the back now because we're going to the break, my friend.
OK.
And is there something urgent you want to tell me? No?
I'll save it for tomorrow.
Save it for tomorrow. OK, my friend. Thank you, Mr. Paul Cloyd there. We'll be back right after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, the A167 is closed each way over the Gateshead flyover for safety checks. In Fermanagh, the A509 is closed each way between Timor and Derry Lynn after an accident yesterday evening. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for emergency repairs. In Powys, the A490 is closed each way at Welshpool after an accident yesterday afternoon. The M42 in Warwickshire is blocked southbound where a car's overturned at junction 9 at Curdworth with queues back beyond junction 10 at Tamworth. The M5 in Worcestershire is blocked southbound by an accident between junction 7 and 8 from Worcester to the M50, causing queues. On the M25 in Essex, there's a lane closed anti-clockwise where overnight roadworks overran earlier between junctions 30 and 29 from the A13 to the A127, causing delays. And on the M25 in Surrey, there's a lane closed clockwise after an accident just after the Cobham services between junctions 9 and 10, causing delays.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
So, how did you get into radio initially?
It's the old thing. You do discos.
Yeah.
Back in the days when you used to put needles on.
What sort of year we're talking about?
Oh, it was black and white.
OK.
That's the closest you're going to get.
Beatles, Rolling Stones?
Yeah. Sort of later than... Yeah, sort of a bit later than that, doing discos. But then you sort of do a tape. I did a tape for BBC Radio Manchester, the local BBC station. And just one off, got a copy of that, edit. Yeah. Naively thought, everybody's going to send a tape to Piccadilly, which was the Manchester station, which was 73. And instead of that, a couple of years later, I sent a tape to Radio City in Liverpool, not thinking that everybody in Liverpool is going to be sending a tape there. And just a guy just went, I'm too good for this, doing the overnights, walked out, and my tape was on the top of the pile. And I got a phone call on a Thursday night, Thursday, the 12th of February, 76. Can you do 2 till 6 in the morning on Radio City in Liverpool? I thought it was one of my pals.
And what was you talking about on that radio show?
It was an overnight programme, so it's music. Yeah. In those days, you didn't have much needle time, but clever devil here noticed that the BBC stuff was not needle time. Yeah. So I used to put, like, the Goons on and the Hancocks. So you've got half an hour, and me and the security guy, Bert, on the door. We're the only two in the building. Yeah. I used to get in my car, put the Goons on, get in my car, dash down to the pier head, get a bacon butty, listening to it all the time, hoping that the record's not stuck, and then dashing back.
GB News, the People's Channel.
As you've been hearing throughout the programme this morning, there are fresh tensions about the identity of an alleged Chinese spy. It's reckoned he could be named today using parliamentary privilege, but some MPs are also criticising the government's response, saying they're moving too fast to re-establish UK-China relations.
Yes, and one of those echoing that sentiment is the MP Tom Tugendhat, who joins us this morning. Good to see you, Tom. Can we start with this issue of whether or not
Isabel.
The spy ought to be named? Known as H6 in the public domain, but lots of people are saying that it's already sort of out there in social media and other places. Are MPs right to push to use parliamentary privilege so that we can all be aware who this individual is?
Well, look, I think individual MPs are going to make their own decision, but the key is that this isn't about one spy. It's not about one individual. It's not even just about Prince Andrew, to be honest. This is about a pattern of activity we've seen coming out of China, not just in recent months, but over years. Now, this is something you know I've been warning about since I was chairing the Foreign Affairs Committee, and as Security Minister, that's exactly why I introduced the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme, which should be live by now.
And why isn't it, in your view? Because this would put China as a top-tier threat and would afford us certain, I suppose, controls over what we allow in terms of Chinese infiltration. Why on earth aren't we using this foreign influence registration scheme yet, then?
Well, look, that is a very good question for the government, because when I left government in July at the election, which came a little bit earlier than I was expecting, I don't know about you, but it was a little bit sooner than I thought, what that was absolutely ready to go. It just needed a little bit more parliamentary time, and it was ready to go. It was supposed to be live by the time of the election that I was expecting, which was in November. So there's no reason to delay. There's absolutely no cause to delay. And I think the Labour Party is frankly being reckless in reaching out to China as they did at the G20 and as Rachel Reeves is planning to do in January without having the proper protections ready. Look, the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme would have built up the pattern of life. That means that incidents like this would have been alerted, would have been brought to attention earlier, and we would have been able to deal with them. Because as the intelligence expression goes, if you want to find a needle in a haystack, first you need a haystack. And the first scheme, particularly with the enhanced tier, would build up that haystack, which means that you can actually find out what's going on.
So, Tom, as it stands, obviously I'm not asking you to name any names, but are you saying that you know who this person is?
Eamonn, look, forgive me, when I became Security Minister, I promised to keep the King's secrets, and I'm not going to reveal anything that I promised to keep secret. I can absolutely understand why others who haven't made the same promise may have a different approach.
No, I'm not asking to reveal secrets. I'm just asking you, do you know, and how common would that knowledge be amongst your colleagues?
Well, there will be a few who will be aware of it.
OK. For people at home who are sort of scratching their heads going, what's all the big deal about these people? You know, they're sort of faceless and they don't seem to affect people's day-to-day lives. It's worth reminding everybody about how there was a cyber attack on the MOD last year and on the Electoral Commission, that the head of the MI6 said that 20,000 Brits had been approached using the website LinkedIn to gather secrets for Beijing, and that 5 Chinese people were charged under the National Security Act for providing prejudicial information to Beijing last year, including 2 who were working for you. Tell us a little bit about that, given that you are... I mean, one commentator this morning said that they were surprised you were, and I quote him, grandstanding on this issue this morning, given how close you had got to people of questionable background.
Well, look, I introduced the National Security Act in order to deal exactly with this point. That's exactly why I introduced it, because I saw the threat that was coming, I warned about it, and if you want to know how seriously the Chinese state takes my actions, they've sanctioned me and they've targeted me continuously. That's how much of an enemy they think I am, because I have taken this seriously, not just for the last year or 2 years, but for 7 years. This is a very serious threat. What we've got to do is to make sure that we are in the right position to defend ourselves. And frankly, it is reckless not to introduce the enhanced scheme of the FIRS plan, and it is absolutely essential that we do so as soon as possible. Now, what we've seen over recent years is not just sort of gossip from the palace or gossip from politics, which is what we're talking about here, but actually the undermining of the British economy, jobs being stolen out of this country, intellectual property, so the ideas, the imagination of the British people being stolen off us and being sent to China to be developed in different ways. Now, that is directly undermining the interests of the British people, and that's exactly why I've taken it seriously. If we want to protect jobs in this country, if we want to protect freedom in this country, we need to be introducing the schemes that I put into law over the last few years, because in the 2 years that I was the Security Minister, we arrested and charged more Russian and Chinese spies in this country than over the previous decade. That's how seriously I take it.
OK, and to be clear, how do you think that you know, as a nation, we should deal with China? Because clearly, if we are to take a stronger position with them, it might hurt us in terms of our own economy. And, you know, you've seen in recent weeks the Prime Minister Starmer cozying up to Xi Jinping at the G20 in Brazil, saying that we want to have a more stable relationship with you. And we've also seen President Trump, who's due to come back into power at the end of next month, inviting Xi Jinping to his inauguration, which often will be a cue for the British government on how they will treat somebody.
So you've got to shake hands with the devil then, have you?
Well, you've got to have relationships, right? But the relationship that the United States has and the relationship that we have is not quite the same thing. Nobody is suggesting setting up a super embassy for the Chinese Communist Party in Washington, but that's exactly what the Labour Party are suggesting should happen here in London. You know, we need to be absolutely conscious of what is being done here in the United Kingdom so that we can have the appropriate response. And unless the Labour Party are willing to introduce the first scheme that was designed when I was the security minister and that is ready to go right now, unless they are actually ready to do it, they don't even know what risks they're taking. Now, I think, frankly, that's reckless.
On the issue of Prince Andrew, MI5 Security Services is now investigating money that's been given to him. Lots of questions surrounding how he's able to afford Royal Lodge in Windsor, given that the King has cut off funding for him for that. In your own capacity as a citizen, as you say, you know, somebody loyal to the royal family, do you think it is actually now time for Prince Andrew to become a private citizen? Has he become a liability for the King?
Forgive me, Isabel, I thought he was a private citizen. I wasn't convinced that that situation had changed.
OK, well, I suppose more of the point, you know, do you think he just is a liability for the King, and is that a concern, do you think?
Well, look, I mean, whatever monies he's received, they'll have to go through the normal anti-money laundering regulations. The banks will have had to check the sources, and we're told that somebody in the palace has confirmed receipt of the funds. I'm afraid you know, the internal workings of the royal family are not my specialty.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Tom Tugendhat, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your time today and broadening this issue for us. We'll leave it there. Thank you. The time is just approaching 20 minutes to 9. Chris Akabusi and Dawn Neeson, they'll have the papers for you right after this.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Britain's Royal Collection of Art is one of the most important and largest in the world. And it's also one of the last great European royal collections to remain intact. And built up over many centuries, it has extraordinary depth. And curators have delved into its riches to produce an exhibition of Italian drawings between 1450 and 1600. There are household names here: Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci. Some of the drawings are complete works in themselves. Some are studies for images that would appear in much larger pieces. And some are anatomical studies which enabled these artists to draw the human form in all its perfection.
This is the earliest drawing in the exhibition of around 1450, and it's made by Fra Angelico, the great Florentine painter. It may seem an obvious thing to say, but we only have drawings like this if they have survived. And these drawings were not seen at the time as works of art. They were workshop studies. They were as functional as a hammer or a paintbrush, if you like, in the workshop. But the fact that a drawing would survive from 1450 to the present day shows that first it was useful, and it was a work that would have been referred to constantly in the artist's studio, and only later was it valued by collectors as an exemplar of the artist's genius, if you like, the way in which we might think of it today. So a drawing like this, which is in almost perfect condition, has got a history of being valued for different reasons from when it was produced to the present.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Dawn Neeson and Chris Akabusi, they've got the newspapers for you this morning. Chris, what do you want to start with?
So the danger is... So the accident and emergency, every single time we get to this year, we have challenges with the NHS. Yeah. Right now, the doctors have been told that they've got to work with...
treat corridors as normal, as if they're operating theatres.
Absolutely. And the Royal College of Emergency Medicine said, no, we cannot normalise this situation. What you've got is a very challenging scenario where you can't keep patient confidentiality when they're operating within... let's say operating. So I had a procedure where I had a constant bleeding nose. I was in the corridor, sat in the corridor, and it's painful.
And you're in public view.
People were walking past, and the doctor's stuffing something up my nose, you know, and it was painful. And I'm going, and people just walking by, blood and infusion. There's no privacy. There's no dignity.
See, the whole idea about this, before we go all blame hospitals, and we can do that if you want, but government, if there is accident and emergency, the clue's in the title. It is an accident and it is an emergency. Therefore, there should be suitable resources. When someone arrives at hospital and there's something wrong with them, it should be dealt with immediately. I don't care about getting your ingrown toenail done or a hair removed from your ear or whatever the heck it happens to be. These things have to be given priority, and there is absolutely no doubt that A&E is not resourced in the NHS.
Of course it isn't, no. And the problem you've got leading on to that situation is a lot of small surgeries that GP surgeries used to do, they no longer do. Simple stuff like having your ears shrinked.
But then we've got to rethink what's available in the NHS and what's not.
Yeah, no, you've got to start from the ground up. You've got to reorganise the GP system so people stop going to hospitals quite as much for minor stuff that can be done elsewhere. We talked earlier about Wes Streeting and how he was a possible future leader for the Labour Party. I mean, before the election, he did talk a really good game about wanting to do massive reforms to Labour, which I think a lot of people thought sounded welcome. Do you think he's been a bit underwhelming on those reforms? Do you think he's, you know, are we seeing these huge changes to Labour that we've...
Well, it's early days, isn't it?
He's only just got in, he's only 6 months, and there's a lot of things going on, and they've got that 22 billion black hole. I don't know if you know, but they've got...
That's a black hole. So nobody mentioned it. Oh.
So, yeah, but it's clear that, you know, over this next 5 years, they have to get on with it, and it'll be a massive success if they could, but... Does that then mean privatisation down the road of some sorts?
Look, it doesn't matter what it means. It obviously cannot be the NHS that was founded all those years ago. It has changed, the world has changed, people have changed, people's expectations have changed, and there's going to have to be things we say no to on the NHS to free up the areas like A&E, which should be better resourced.
Well, there are systems in Germany and Australia. They have systems that work where if you can afford it, you take a small healthcare insurance, you get a GP surgery, a doctor's appointment straight away, you get seen straight away. That works.
There was a guy I knew who was playing football at the weekend. He got his leg broken. The X-ray is horrendous in 2 places. And he had to wait 5 hours for an ambulance to turn up. 5 hours on a rainy football pitch. There was no one to come to him. He had to wait there. No one could bring him because he was in such pain. And you sort of think, Why is that allowed to happen?
Yeah.
That should not be the case.
Yeah. And also, if he makes his own way there, so a private in a car, he gets put into a subsidiary. I've been there too, where actually you got up to 12 hours before you can get into the NHS system. It's just a little subsidiary area where they take all your documentation, but plant you there while they deal with the accident emergency that come through.
Being brought in by the ambulances, it's just a mess, isn't it? Can we talk about a cold remedy fit for a king? Lots of people have these sort of seasonal sniffles at the moment. Everyone in my house seems to be filling tissues with snot. Lovely. What is the perfect solution, Dawn, according to the Times?
I picked the story as inspired by Mr. Akabuti. There has been sniffling.
Oh, no.
When he first walked in. He's much better now. And a bit of a chesty cough, young man. But evidently, this is research that's been going on by the National Archives at Kew Gardens in southwest London. And they had remedies from the 1400s showing sufferers how to make herbal poultices to actually cure colds. And these involve aged beer and nutmeg paste.
Nutmeg paste?
Nutmeg
I've never
paste.
heard of nutmeg.
No, absolutely.
I thought you were going to say turmeric or something.
Well, no, it's stale out, mustard seeds and nutmeg. You boil it together, and I'm never quite sure whether you eat it, rub it on your chest or sniff
Inhale
it
it.
or inhale it. But it worked then.
I think I'll stick with my Lemsip.
Yeah, well, there is that, yeah.
Here's something, two pictures here, one of the King and one of Prince Philip, and they're wearing the same coat that we're looking at. There's Prince Philip, and this is in the 1950s, and that is the King.
I love that.
So that they obviously keep this. There's no such thing of somebody in the 70s saying, that's now 20 years out of date, we throw that out. These are all kept in the royal wardrobe.
Oh, it's brilliant. No, so I've got a pair of, these denim jeans are in now, aren't they? Well, so I've recycled my denim jeans from 20 years ago, and they're just spot on. Bit baggy down there. The old man looks
Lucky
like...
you.
Yeah.
Some of us can only dream. Yeah. Right.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So here's a pub sign. Landlord sued for historic pub sign by a terrorist.
This is one of those, I'm convinced there's a panel of people sitting around somewhere trying to come up with the most insane, bonkers theories and stories, and we all go, no, really? Well, this is one of those. This is in The Sun today, and it's an exclusive of theirs, and it's a pub called the Saracen's Head, and it's in Amersham and Buckinghamshire. And they are being sued, the landlord's being sued by a chap called Khalid Bakr, who claims the depiction of a bearded Arab Turk, the pub sign, basically, incites violence. He says that he has been instilled worry and fear in me since it was clearly xenophobic, racist, inciting violence to certain people. He was so upset by this, he went back 4 times just to check out how upset he was. So he's issued a small claim for money saying that this is racist and it's upset him. And he has actually served time for disseminating terrorism material. Yeah, jailed for preparing jihadi propaganda.
Why is anybody even listening to him?
Because we have a mad legal system, nearly as mad as the NHS is at the moment, that's why. But it's just, make it stop.
Yeah.
You know what? He'll probably get his money as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that is the case.
Right, let's talk about bosses secretly delighted if staff quit rather than return to the office. This is in the Telegraph. Many employers are saying end of home working, and that's reducing headcount.
Yeah, so, they're thinking that it's a surreptitious sort of manipulative manoeuvre in order to respond to the recent budget and the national insurance. We've got to reduce our headcount. So if we also try to encourage our employees back from home after COVID, back into the workplace, many people are agitating and arguing and saying, right, see, I'm throwing in my notice, not knowing that actually they're playing into the scheme that the bosses want. Now, there are many benefits for many benefits for having employees in the workplace. Employee engagement, productivity goes up. So I can understand
Office romances.
Darling, really? I'll have to talk to Mark about that one. But, yeah, so they're just saying that this is a challenge. Now, if you interview graduates, over half of graduates are saying that they would not apply for a job where they had to work full-time in the office. So they have got that challenge. People have got used to the idea of working from home, 2 or 3 days maybe. But I just thought it was very interesting to see there's this great big argument, and bosses might be using this not to have to pay out redundancies, for
But if
example.
all these people quit their jobs because they only want to work from home, presumably they are confident they'll be able to find jobs working from home.
Or they're stupid.
Well, they'll probably get a job with the civil service. That seems to work.
Well, they might find out that there is no jobs from working from home, actually, that actually we've gone back to the way the world was pre-COVID.
But they don't make him like they used to anymore. It's probably... when I was editing the newspaper, I employed young reporters, you know, and they would turn up and they say, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I'm finishing now. And it's like, no, it's a national newspaper, you just have to carry on. But they were so entitled.
Yeah, but you sort of look, how far did they ever get?
They didn't get a job with me, that's for sure.
No, that's true. So I can't imagine, you and I from the same era, that anybody who applied that rules to themselves would have progressed within our industry in those years.
Yeah, well, they're probably editing newspapers now, Eamonn. Who knows?
Dawn, can we talk about the perfect weather conditions? This is actually, for once, a good farming story.
It is a good farming
story. And we're all in
story.
line for a Christmas treat in the shape of...
Well, it depends if you want a treat or not. It's Brussels sprouts are supersized this year. They're up from 24 millimetres last year to 30 millimetres
Why?
this year.
Do we know why?
It's a bumper crop. Because the weather has been perfect. Last year it rained a lot, and it feels like it's rained a lot this year, by the way. But we've had the right amounts of warmth and sunshine during the summer and the right amount of rain in the autumn. So they are 25% bigger.
And they're cheaper. It costs a lot less. You can go to the supermarket.
I take on board what you're saying there. I noticed recently in restaurants that they're available on the menu in different forms way before Christmas, nothing to do with Christmas.
I mean, I do like a Brussels sprout. Only problem is that...
I know, we'll gloss over that. Always lowering the tone, aren't you? That's what we invite you in for, Chris. It's all the hot air.
There we go,
there we go. Boom.
There's going to be a lot of it about, because Tesco are selling 1.5 million kilograms of them. That's equivalent to 3 sprouts for every person in the country in the 2 weeks leading up to Christmas.
Can we just really quickly end on Paul McCartney? Why is his face looking back at me?
Because he's back. He's doing his tour, and obviously the Beatles, phenomenal. Please Love Me Do, Hard Day's Night. But also, I love the fact that he's going to play his stuff from Wings. Because when I was a young...
McIntyre.
Oh, yeah, no, Sea Moon and Band on the Run. You know, so, obviously I was back in the 60s as well. But that transition, when he went from that into Wings, I love it as well. And he's rocking it. People are loving it.
How old is he? 80?
82.
Yeah,
82.
first time since 2022 at Glastonbury that he's been performing. Great to have him back. And it's been lovely having you both as well,
Bless
Chris
you.
Agarbusi,
Lovely.
Dawn Neeson.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
See ya.
Happy belated birthday. Thank you, Jonathan.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. A mild and blustery start to the week for many of us. Looking at the pressure pattern, you'll see plenty of isobars on the chart indicating some quite gusty westerly winds for many of us. We've also got this cold front that's essentially become stuck in the flow and is going to be stalling across northern and western parts of Scotland throughout much of today. Quite a lot of rainfall developing here, so do take care. A rain warning is in force. Northern Ireland, England and Wales, a few showers to watch out for, but generally a much drier day, and we'll hopefully see some brighter, sunnier spells developing at times as well. Quite mild conditions for many of us. Top temperatures across southern areas of England will be around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius, but that blustery wind is going to be with us, so that will just take the edge off the feel of things a touch when you are stepping outside. If you are further towards the north, particularly to the north of this rain band, we do have some slightly cooler conditions here. So for the likes of Shetland and Lerwick, we do have top temperatures here of 8 degrees Celsius. This rain band will still be in place throughout much of Monday night, and the rain warning is in force all the way through until Tuesday, potentially half a month's worth of rain quite widely across the Highlands by the time we reach the middle of Tuesday. And snow melt as well with those mild conditions will also be an issue for some flooding impacts. Generally, temperatures between 6 and 9 degrees Celsius as we start off Tuesday, and we will see this further area of rain move across Northern Ireland and Scotland during the day. A few showers for England and Wales, but generally drier here, and potentially, again, a bit of hazy sunshine, maybe a touch of brightness developing at times. Strong south-southerly winds, though, in place. Gales around coastal areas in the west. Those winds, again, feeding in some quite mild conditions. Temperatures of 10 to 11 degrees Celsius. But a shift in wind direction to a northerly later on this week does mean that we will eventually start to see some cooler conditions filtering their way in. So from Thursday and Friday, our temperatures are going to be dropping down. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A832 is closed over Moy Bridge in Marybank because of flooding. In Tyne Wear, the A167 is closed over the Gateshead flyover for safety checks. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for repairs. In Powys, the A490 is closed each way at Welshpool after an accident yesterday afternoon. In the West Midlands, Walsall Road at Darlaston's closed, causing delays. The M42 in Warwickshire is closed southbound at Junction 9 at Curdworth, where a car's overturned. There are queues back beyond Junction 10 at Tamworth. On the M5 in Worcestershire, there are long southbound delays after an accident earlier between Junction 7 and 8 from Worcester to the M50. It's been taking over an hour in the queues. On the M25 in Hertfordshire, the outside lanes closed anti-clockwise at Junction 17 at Maple Cross after an accident with queues for around a mile. And on the M25 in Essex, there are long anti-clockwise delays from Junction 31 at West Thurrock to 28 for the A12.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Calls are growing to name the alleged Chinese spy at the centre of the Prince Andrew scandal.
Labour, Conservative and Reform MPs are threatening to use what is called parliamentary privilege to bring about a full investigation.
And it comes as Prince Andrew faces further scrutiny and questions over his relationship with the spy in question, and it's another headache for the King. Earlier, we spoke with former Securities Minister Tom Tugendhat.
Unless the Labour Party are willing to introduce the first scheme that was designed when I was the Security Minister and that is ready to go right now, unless they are actually ready to do it, they don't even know what risks they're taking.
While the Prime Minister's met his Norwegian counterpart to announce a new Green Deal before he heads to Estonia for a defence summit.
Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber has opened up the doors to the London Palladium to farmers today, as they'll be meeting to discuss their next steps in their fight against the government.
Close to 1,000 feared dead after a cyclone tears through the French territory of Mayotte in the Indian Ocean as it now makes landfall in Mozambique.
Join me later for a look at the weather this week and to find out if there's any sunshine on the cards for your region.
On this Monday morning, a very good morning. Thank you very much for your company. Good to see you and hear you. Maybe we're with you in your kitchen or your car. Whatever way you're listening or watching us, you're very welcome. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
It's good to have you back, Eamonn. I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast. About wherever people are watching or listening from. A little bit earlier, we got sent a picture of a doggy watching us. Well, we've also just received this from Robert, a picture of his pet Simba, apparently enjoying GB News this morning. So we're talking about it being a family programme. Oh, look at that. Simba, I can see why he went for that name.
That's a Lion King name, isn't it?
Lion King name,
yeah. So there we are. I'm just wondering if Simba was the alleged Chinese spy. It could be, and we'll probably find out today. But this spy should be named by MPs today, and they will use what is called parliamentary privilege.
Yes, the alleged spy, known as H6 at the moment, has been described as having an unusual degree of trust with Prince Andrew and is reported to have also met with former Prime Ministers Lord David Cameron and Baroness Theresa May.
He was banned from Britain in 2023 by the former Home Secretary Suella Braverman when it was believed he was acting on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, the Duke of York has insisted that no sensitive matters were ever discussed and, he says, all contact stopped following government advice.
Earlier we spoke to the former Security Minister Tom Tugendhat. Now he's calling on the government to revive the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme.
The Labour Party is frankly being reckless in reaching out to China as they did at the G20 and as Rachel Reeves is planning to do in January without having the proper protections ready. Look, the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme would have built up the pattern of life. That means that incidents like this would have been alerted, would have been brought to attention earlier, and we would have been able to deal with them. Because as the intelligence expression goes, if you want to find a needle in a haystack, first you need a haystack. And the first scheme, particularly with the enhanced tier, would build up that haystack, which means that you can actually find out what's going on.
The thoughts this morning of the Minister for Levelling Up and Housing, that's Jim McMahon, who joins us live from Westminster. Good morning to you. Shall we start then with that point being raised by Tom Tugendhat there? He claims that when he left government, the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme was, in his words, ready to go. If you want to find a needle in a haystack, first of all, you have to have the so-called haystack. Why aren't you using it?
Well, I mean, if we hear from the previous government, everything was in train just about ready to go before the election, but they never did it. Listen, on this particular issue, we're very clear that the authorities have identified the individual, that action has been taken, and it's now a matter of the court to decide about the identity on the previous question. As to what follows in terms of a change of policy, obviously that is for the Cabinet to make that call after consideration. But the fact today is about the identity of the individual and whether or not that should be that person should be named or not.
And what do you make of your colleagues and indeed those in the press, the front of the Daily Mail this morning, saying why China spy must be named? Many MPs of all different political parties threatening to use their parliamentary privilege to expose the identity of the alleged spy. Would you agree with using that privilege?
Well, parliamentary privilege is something, by its very nature, is not something that every citizen has. And so if you're going to use that privilege, you need to use it with care and with diligence and to make sure that there is an overwhelming public interest. My personal view, and it is a personal privilege that we carry as MPs, is that I, on this case, will be happy to defer to the court. The identity of the individual is known by the authorities, action has been taken, and it's being dealt with. Now, there may be other matters that I'm not aware of, and maybe that is driving the decision of some to want to name, and that's for them to explain. But on the basis of the facts that I have seen, I think it's for the courts to decide.
Jim, you're one of the people who may decide on devolution revolution. What is that? What does that mean?
Well, it's about taking power away from this place, because you know that Parliament and Whitehall hoard all the power in this country, and communities feel completely locked out of any control they've got in their local area. This is about breaking that model up and distributing power from the centre through mayors and combined authorities, through empowered councils, but importantly through communities too. And that top-to-bottom redistribution of power is absolutely critical. And it goes from establishing those combined authorities with mayors right across England to have the power to effect change in their places, on transport like the bus system, on housing to get those 1.5 million new homes built, on addressing the skills issues where, we need to build those 1.5 million new homes.
Jim, I know, you're exuding there, you're talking very enthusiastically about freeing up power and locals be able to make more decisions that affect them and their areas, but isn't there a chance that you're just creating another level of bureaucracy?
Well, no. The thing about mayors is that they are visible and they are accountable. And if they make the right calls, they'll get public support. If they make the wrong calls, they can be held to account at the ballot box. Quite a lot of the decisions that get made are made by ministers. Let me give you an example. Every day, every minister will get a red box of sign-off decisions that we have to make. Now, some of the sign-offs that I get go from the weird and wonderful, many significant issues, like the financing of £4 billion of new money into local government, but in the same box, there can be a request to sign off whether or not a cyclist should be able to go through a local park in a parish council area. Well, that is ridiculous. But it's an example of the type of power and the centralising nature of our politics that means that the government and ministers hold all the power and communities just don't. And that's why that top-to-bottom reorganisation of power is really important.
Forgive me if I feel like, this government has a little bit of bipolar. Just last week we heard from the Deputy Prime Minister about taking away powers from local government, powers that they've had for decades in this country, and objecting to buildings on Greenbelt or destroying their local communities, having absolutely no say, no democratic mandate at all, the centralisation of power when it comes to that. And then you're standing here saying that you really believe in taking power away from Westminster. Which is it?
Well, I just don't accept that principal point, which is we are not taking power away. We are giving councils the power to get on and to do the job. There are too many councils, honestly, that have not got the local plans in place that mean that it is a free-for-all for developers to carry on and do what they want to do, sometimes against community interests. What a local plan does is to marshal the council with the community to decide on the direction of development in their area, and we want every area to benefit from that. Now, there'll always be a case where a number of councils choose not to do that, and there's got to be a fallback position, but it is only a fallback position. In the end, we are driving that community involvement, not just on planning, but also on the future of their towns, their high streets, so that people don't feel as though what's happening is happening to them, that they have far more power and control in the places where they live. But it's always going to be a balance. And I will just say this on the housing question. There are 150,000 children in this country in temporary accommodation, including 500 children in my own town who this Christmas will not be getting around the fireplace opening the presents, they'll be in a hotel room. And so when we talk about why we have to build the 1.5 million new homes, there is a crisis here, and it's being felt by people in every community. But that's not a crisis of our making.
Jim, you've just hit upon what's really going to annoy people, and this is why they won't want to give you this power. It was all brilliant, it was all lovely until you started saying that those children were in a hotel room. People immediately think, well, that means they're not going to Mrs. Biggins and her 5 kids down the street there. They're going to somebody from Swahalia or whatever, and they're in a hotel locally. So these are migrants who weren't here this time last year or the year before, and they're not going to make a darn bit of difference to the waiting lists for housing.
What on earth? I don't understand that point.
The point is, you said
British kids who are in hotel rooms. Right. It's got nothing to do with immigrants. These are British kids in hotel rooms.
Right. Just want to make that clear.
Private rented accommodation, often for daring to make a complaint about the condition of their home, who are forced into the temporary accommodation in hotels. Why? Because the prices of rent have gone through the roof. Yeah. And that's a supply issue as much as anything else.
Jim, I just wanted to clear that up. So that is good. That is good, and that is very admirable. And that's
the urgency.
That's the urgency, and we'll all agree with that. Thank you for that.
You'll be aware, Jim, that here at GB News we're giving a lot of coverage to the grievances that farmers have against the Labour Party in your inheritance tax changes. And I just want to draw your attention to the lead story on the Daily Telegraph today, which says the inheritance tax raid will cost more than it makes. And Rachel from Accounts, it seems, has got her sums all wrong. And this is according to the CBI. They say that income from inheritance tax is approximately £1.38 billion. billion, but the impact of this tax will cost 125,678 jobs and a drop of 2.6 billion in other tax revenue. That's a loss to the Treasury of 1.26 billion. When are you going to back down from this pointless scheme?
Well, the point is, it's the Labour government that's on the side of hard-working farmers. I did the DEFRA brief for a year and a half in opposition, and I met hundreds of farmers up and down this country that are the backbone of this country. They give us food security, and they make sure that the shelves are stocked in the supermarket. But this measure is about making sure that there is fairness in the system. We've got to have an inheritance here of public services that are absolutely on their knees.
It's going to cost
Just think
you
about the number
more than it's
of
going
police
to
officers that have been lost.
recoup.
Think about the NHS
How does
on
that
its knees and
work
how
for the
long
NHS?
people have to wait. That's the real issue, and we'll take no lectures at all from the Tories who were in government before or the press that were propping them up.
This is from the CBI.
Since 2019, there were 7,000 agricultural businesses went bust on their watch. That's the reality. So we'll take
here's
no
a
lectures
challenge.
from the
If you can
Tories
find a
or the
single
press
one
that
of the
prop them up on
farmers that you
basis.
spoke to in
It's
your
Labour
shadow
that's on the side
capacity.
of hard-working families,
Here's a
and it's
challenge.
Labour that's ensuring that we have food security.
If you can find a single one of those farmers that you spoke to in your capacity as Shadow Minister for Environment who is supportive of this, please do bring them along. We'd love to meet them, because we get to meet a single farmer who thinks this is a good idea.
Well, over 30% of farmers aren't landowners at all. They're tenant farmers. Over 70% of farmers who are landowners won't pay a single penny in inheritance tax. We need to get this into perspective here. Labour is on the side of hard-working farmers, but farmers live in communities. They use the NHS, they rely on the police services, and to speak to the number of farmers who will say they are the victim of rural crime, and when they pick up the phone to the police, nobody turns up. We have to rebuild public services from the ground up, and everybody across the country, including those in rural communities, will be the beneficiaries of that investment.
But Jim, I mean, I hear your point, I hear what you're trying to reason, but these people are hard-working. They pay for this anyway. Don't try and make out that they don't contribute to their local communities.
I've said exactly the opposite. I said they do contribute. They make sure that we have food security. They make sure there's food on the shelves in the supermarket, and they are the backbone of this country. They are the hardest working people. But there's got to be fairness in the system, and an exemption for farmers in the way that was there before. For the landowning farmers, they're the highest value farms, not for the everyday farm, not for the tenant farmers, not for over 70% of farmers. For the few at the top. That's what this is about. And to say that this is somehow Labour turning their backs on the farmers is absolutely for the birds. It's Labour that's defending the farmers. It's Labour that's sticking up for the farmers' interest. And it's Labour that's building the long-term security of public services that with the benefit of every community, including rural communities.
Jim, good to talk to you. Well argued. Sorry for annoying you. It's just the job that we have to do. But thank you very, very much indeed. Well argued.
We're going to stay with the topic of farmers. They are, of course, set to discuss their next steps in their fight against the government's so-called family farm tax later on this morning.
Now, the event is hosted by the London Palladium, the theatre. The theatre is owned by Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber, who joined last month's demonstration.
And our reporter Adam Cherry joins us now from London Palladium. Obviously, normally the scene of theatrics and wonderful West End shows, but today it's going to be a showdown of a different sort.
Yeah, a slightly different performance today at the London Palladium, guys. It kicks off at 12 o'clock today, the British Property Relief Summit. It lasts 3 hours. And we'll hear from farming community leaders, who, as we have been since the budget, really, since that end of October Halloween budget. And we will also see the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch. She'll be delivering a speech we expect about 2:30, 3 o'clock. And essentially it'll be the same sort of thing that we've been hearing over the last few weeks. I mean, it was only just last week that we saw tractors descend upon Whitehall. It's the same group who organised the protest at the end of November who will be leading the charge today. They'll be criticising the government for introducing 20% tax on farming estates above £1 million, and they will be ferocious in their criticism. So we look forward to seeing what they have to say. Of course, you just heard from Jim McMahon there. The government's position is that they are backing farmers and they're backing businesses. They've frozen corporation tax, they've retained full expensing, but they have a £22 billion black hole. We've heard all this before, and so they need to put the finances on a stable footing, and this is part of that. Farmers disagree. We'll be here all day covering what they have to say, covering what the Leader of the Opposition has to say, and that will be kicking off, as I say, at about midday.
Adam,
Thank
thanks
you,
very much.
The London Palladium was on telly last night, so it was the, what was it, the Royal Variety performance, wasn't it? And so that was quite a long time on TV. It's a magnificent theatre.
It is, it's gorgeous.
Beautiful theatre, yeah. Right, well, time for the Great British Giveaway. This is your chance to become, and I kid you not, our biggest ever winner with this one, with £50,000 in cash, and it is tax-free.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Still to come, Andrew and Miriam will be here to give us a sneak peek of what Britain's newsroom has for you today. That's all coming up next here on GB News Breakfast.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, joining us now is Feng Shui expert Karina Sophia, who's going to share some of the best ways to ensure that our homes are still feeling calm as well as beautifully decorated this Christmas time.
One of the Feng Shui myths is that Feng Shui is all about moving furniture, and it isn't at all. Oh. Well, there is a little bit of that. It is about the flow of energy, but it starts outside, so there's lots of different forms of Feng Shui. So what we're going to talk about today is one form called Flying Stars Feng Shui, and there's another one that's classical, and form Feng Shui starts outside. If a 5-year-old would walk past your house and be happy, then the energy will.
I love that.
So if a 5-year-old would like to see more, would like to come in and would touch anything and not get hurt, then it's a good thing and the energy is feeling good and wants to come in as well.
What about the light colours? Does that matter? Does that come into play?
Yes, there are different colours. Depending on the direction, the compass direction of your home, there are good colours that support energy inside the home. So if your home is facing north, for instance, then it would be sitting south, and the inherent energy of the south is fire. So you want to have red or green, which is wood that fuels the fire, and that supports the inside of the home. Now, I just painted my door red a couple of days ago, and then I got this opportunity, so don't underestimate it. You want to decorate your tree with whatever you want to manifest. Whatever it is that you want to bring into your life. So this speaks for itself. It says joy. And it has a little bell
I
on
like
it.
that idea. I can get on board with this. So you decorate your tree with things you'd like to see in your life.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to put some joy.
That would be nice.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
9 is the time. You're watching GB News Breakfast. Now, during Advent, that is the build-up to Christmas, we are hearing from church ministers right across the country.
Yes, and every day they are bringing you a special message to help you celebrate the festive season.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 16.
Hi, I'm Chris Tufnell. I'm the vicar of Uterbridge Parish Church near Sheffield. Chaos or calm? Which word better describes your experience of Christmas? The Christmas cards give us pictures of idyllic calm, don't they? Robins on snow-covered postboxes, Mary and Joseph having a quiet night in. But that's not what Christmas feels like for many of us, and in reality, I'm sure it's not what that first Christmas felt like either. After all, Mary went through childbirth in a stable, and I'm pretty sure it won't have been calm like on the Christmas cards. But it does say in the Bible that after the shepherds had gone, Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. She had good reason to ponder these things. After all, they were happening to her. But I think that we have good reason to ponder these things as well. You know, I think it's hard to deny that Jesus has influenced this world more than anyone else who's ever lived. That's a big claim, I know, but I think it's true. And so might you, this Christmas, like Mary, find some calm amid the chaos to ponder this man who has changed our world forever. Happy Christmas.
Thank you very much, and happy Christmas to you.
Indeed.
You can see all of our special Advent messages as Christmas approaches, and they're available by visiting gbnews.com/Advent.
Merry Christmas. Now, Britain's newsroom is fast approaching today. Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates in the hot seats. Miriam, that's your church, isn't it, that we've just
Yes,
seen?
former. We recently moved, but yes,
Lovely.
it was indeed.
Oh.
So, yeah. So I'm hoping...
You attended regularly?
Absolutely. I'm a committed churchgoer. I was at church last night in a carol service.
Oh, were you? I was at a carol service over the weekend. 'Tis the season.
It is.
Absolutely.
It's very lovely. What have you got in store for us today, guys?
Well, we're talking about this poll, which hasn't had a lot of coverage, Ipsos poll, which shows the three main parties. You would think the Lib Dems, no, Labour, Tories and Reform, level pegging. Are the tectonic plates shifting?
And what about the Prime Minister's own personal rating?
Yes,
Minus,
he's
what is it?
not doing so well. I think the most unpopular Prime Minister this early on in history. But I think, you know, the polling's clear, but I do wonder if actually just generally the culture is changing and people are becoming very unpopular very quickly. There's just a great dissatisfaction with establishment politics across the world.
We were discussing how Wes Streeting seems to be quite well received. I think it's his ability to answer a question directly.
Yeah.
Whereas you just
Matter
feel
about
like
Wes
with
Streeting,
Keir Starmer...
Labour will be history. If it was ever put to the vote, people who lent their vote to Labour will want it back.
Well, Labour got very few votes at the general election and hardly improved. In fact, they didn't. They got fewer votes under Starmer than they did under Corbyn. The problem is our first-past-the-post system skews the votes of parties get big majorities when they don't in the polls.
But that's not to say we'd be in a better position if it was PR.
No, indeed.
necessarily.
No, indeed. There's no right answer, is there?
Well, guys, you have all the answers from 9:30. Thank you very much indeed. We will love you and leave you. Isabel and I'll be back tomorrow morning from 6 through to 9:30. Hope you can join us.
Here's Jonathan Fortree with one last look at the forecast. Bye-bye.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. A mild and blustery start to the week for many of us. Looking at the pressure pattern, you'll see plenty of isobars on the chart indicating some quite gusty westerly winds for many of us. We've also got this cold front that's essentially become stuck in the flow and is going to be stalling across northern and western parts of Scotland throughout much of today. Quite a lot of rainfall developing here, so do take care. A rain warning is in force. Northern Ireland, England and Wales, a few showers to watch out for, but generally a much drier day, and we'll hopefully see some brighter, sunnier spells developing at times as well. Quite mild conditions for many of us. Top temperatures across southern areas of England will be around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius, but that blustery wind is going to be with us, so that will just take the edge off the feel of things a touch when you are stepping outside. If you are further towards the north, particularly to the north of this rain band, we do have some slightly cooler conditions here. So for the likes of Shetland and Lerwick, we do have top temperatures here of 8 degrees Celsius. This rain ban will still be in place throughout much of Monday night, and the rain warning is in force all the way through until Tuesday, potentially half a month's worth of rain quite widely across the Highlands by the time we reach the middle of Tuesday. And snow melt as well, with those mild conditions, will also be an issue for some flooding impacts. Generally, temperatures between 6 and 9 degrees Celsius as we start off Tuesday, and we will see this further area of rain move across Northern Ireland and Scotland during the day. A few showers for England and Wales, but generally drier here, and potentially, again, a bit of hazy sunshine, maybe a touch of brightness developing at times. Strong southerly winds, though, in place. Gales around coastal areas in the west. Those winds, again, feeding in some quite mild conditions. Temperatures of 10 to 11 degrees Celsius. But a shift in wind direction to a northerly later on this week does mean that we will eventually start to see some cooler conditions filtering their way in. So from Thursday and Friday, our temperatures are going to be dropping down. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A832 is closed over Moy Bridge at Marybank because of flooding. Trains aren't running between Stirling and Alloa after a train broke down. In Tyne and Wear, the A167 is closed over the Gateshead flyover for safety checks. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for emergency repairs. In Powys, the A490 is closed at Welshpool after an accident yesterday afternoon. The M42 in Warwickshire is closed southbound at Junction 9 at Curdworth, where a car overturned the accused back beyond Junction 10 at Tamworth. On the M1 in Northamptonshire, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed northbound just after Junction